Welcome, ladies and gents, to the FPL show, the FACEIT Pro League show. I'm here with Halvor Gullestol.
That's pretty good.
Gullestol?
Pretty good.
Nice.
Good, yeah.
Vendetta, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Pretty excited. Pretty happy about my stay so far in London. Was actually given food today.
Nice, yeah.
So, yeah.
It's not all bad.
Yeah, it's been pretty good.
Yeah, we had some North American matches last night as well as Europe as well. So
yeah,
we got to sleep in today, and so we're ready for the FPL. Welcome to the show, guys. Of course, if you're not familiar with the FPL, of course, it is essentially a pug system for all the professional players that's regulated by the pro players, but is also accessible to the community at large. If you're able to qualify through by just grinding the ladder, getting the points necessary to get to the through the qualifiers, and then once again getting enough points over a period of a few days in the kind of qualifier ladder, and then boom, you can get placed in there with all the pros to play. And it's actually kind of cool because we were talking about this as well off camera. We're going to have like a different guy topping FPL every month because a lot of the top players won't necessarily be playing all the time. They won't be as active as let's say you're the challenger guy. You're the new guy on the block. You want to get noticed.
Yeah, you're going to put in an insane amount of time.
And it's worth it. You actually you get to the top of the ladder pretty easily because a lot of the pros can't play too actively.
Yeah, have to go to tournaments. They have to do their job.
Yeah, exactly. They got to do their
guys.
job. Yeah, and I love the invite systems actually because we always used to use these in when I was playing like Dota 1, Quake 3, everything in IRC, all on IRC.
Yeah, what we would call IHL, like invite or in-house leagues.
In-house leagues, yeah.
So that's pretty much, and that was used pretty well for a pretty extended period of time. I think obviously now IRC has started to die down, or it's pretty much dead, at least within CS, sadly so, in my opinion. But when CSGO came out, even out to late 2013, started 2014, we still had gather channels, invite channels for that very purpose, just having the best players in that region being able to play versus each other at any given time. And
one thing actually about how the qualification system works with this as well is that some people might be like, okay, well, I won all my qualification matches, but I still didn't get ranked into Master, which is what you need to do to then be able to qualify through to the FPL League. Well, then what you need to do is you need to have your ELO high enough. So you've got to grind the league so your ELO can be high enough so that when you start your placement matches, your ELO is going to reflect the right opponents. So you're going to have the right difficulty, and then it will say, okay, boom, you can go Masters. And that's kind of how your path to success can begin. So let's check out last month's leaderboard and see how things went last month. Who were the stars? Who were the people that were interesting to watch? Of course,
there's one pretty clear standout in that leaderboard, and that's obviously Oskar, who we've seen twice this week playing for Hellraisers, and you can kind of see why he would do well in a league like FPL. He's a different kind of beast as a player, but you also have the usual suspects that you would expect. Forrest, Olafmeister, up there at Freiburg, as you can see at that 10th spot. But this is also one of the cool things with FPL. You're going to see quite a few names that you don't necessarily see that often, and that's what we're talking about. Every time you see someone being brought into a team, a lot of the community won't have a pretty good idea of who this player is, how good he is, what he's going to be able to do, and most of the time they're looked at as a downgrade for whatever reason. But you could definitely tell that there's skill here. You can see Kyrie from the previous existence teams, Robin, who played with the flip side with Dumas, Benji, all of those guys. Mystic from London Conspiracy, Reese in there, who played for Norway in the World Championship, Minis. So just overall pretty familiar names for those who actually play the game actively, but for someone who only watches pro games, this might be a bit of a new splash and some new names popping up for them.
Yeah, it's very cool actually, because again, Oskar's a guy that got kind of noticed because of being able to play against these players frequently. Because I mean, you can play against people in practices, but the pug environment's a little bit different because
it's very different.
Individual skill then becomes like a much more of a defining factor. So that can, I mean, individual skill is always going to be flashy and something that's nice for teams to look at and be like, wow, this guy, he can hit shots. Yeah. Maybe if he can just like run strats with us, maybe if we can test out the chemistry, but at least if he can hit shots, then we can try him out.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of how Jacob, who now plays for Gamers 2, if you go 2 years back, everybody in Norway was thinking to themselves, well, Jacob, he's kind of, there's not too much going on.
Up there.
Yeah, while he's playing. Wow. Everybody looked at him as a gather hero, pug hero, who would occasionally drop 30, 40 frags versus the best players in Norway at any given time. but he'd do it by basically running and gunning. So there wasn't much afterthought to what he did.
Right.
And therefore, not a lot of people take him seriously. And luckily for him, he was able to still be able to play in a matter. He definitely doesn't play the same way now in Gamers 2 as he did in Pugs back then, but he's still able to find a play style that works within a team setting that can also allow for him to showcase his skill. And that's kind of what you need to do, because if you can't, it's actually just pretty much the fact that you can't play the same way you do in Pugs in official games versus the top tier teams, because you're gonna get absolutely wrecked. You're not gonna be allowed to do that versus an organized team. And so that's the big challenge for a lot of upcoming players. And
that's what we're seeing with. That's why watching Oskar and Stico right now is very interesting, because we're like, okay, we know you can do this, but can you do that in a team setting? So that's quite cool. And speaking of Oskar, of course, let's check out the current leaderboard. See, if he's even up there on this month's leaderboard. And here we go. Oh my God, Twist! Please stop. Twist is replacing Oskar. He's got some spare time on his hands, and we all know he's a badass, and he is definitely showing why. Stico's up there, which is quite cool. We're going to be looking at Stico in a bit more detail in a moment. But 16K, a guy that's actually qualified through, and someone that we don't know anything about right now.
No, it's pretty much he's a Dane. He's 24 years old. Doesn't have any accolades. He hasn't any previous teams that are, I guess, worthwhile speaking of to that point. So that's one of the chances you're going to get by qualifying through the Masters League and getting into FPL. You're going to have a shot at doing what he's doing now. He's kind of making a name for himself in a situation, because he's in good company here. You could definitely tell that there's a lot of solid players. Oskar still here on the top 10 leaderboard,
still up there.
Yeah, number 7 you've got Flush Edge, Akin, again Olaf Meister and Robin, and Pyth as well. So not too shabby. First month in FPL, sitting at 3rd.
Absolutely, it's great to see. Because every month you're going to get new names. That's guaranteed. You're going to get new people in there. So that's pretty cool to see. And Stico's up there, number 3. So
number 2 actually.
Number 2, sorry. Yeah. And we actually have caught Stico with an interview, which we'll be jumping into in a moment. But first of all, let's talk about him. Do you know much about Stico? What is your awareness of this guy right now?
Well, I even played with him when he started making a name for himself, when he played in Generation of Miracles back in 2013 with Guardian, that team, because we actually ended up in the same group as them in Fragmite Masters. And we ended up losing to them 16-14, and if I recall correctly, Guardian had something like 44 frags or something, so it felt like we lost to Guardian. But obviously Stico made quite significant strides since that time, and definitely became a player to watch out for, and you could definitely tell that by him being able to join Hellraisers. So he's definitely made massive improvements to his game, and it's just kind of been a stable player. I think you mentioned it yesterday or the day before that he's more of a Crims-esque player in the sense that he's going to be the guy you can rely on in that Hellraisers team, and he's going to be the backbone that allows for guys like Oskar to absolutely go crazy, because they know that they have Stico to fall back on.
Yeah, I can't wait to see more of Stico here, because as you say,
Stico, yeah, sorry.
He's like a guy that it feels like I'm seeing some flashes a bit kind of like Bondig, a bit of Crims, that kind of that style of like efficiency and consistency, not overstepping, but being able to deliver
playing within
some big results when you need them, and that's really cool. Like you said, the backbone, that's very, very cool. And in fact, again, we don't know a huge amount about him, because he's a new guy essentially for I guess all of the viewers, generally speaking, for us essentially. You haven't seen him in any big lineups in the past. His history is somewhat of a blank slate in that sense. So
he's been around within the regional scene for quite a few years. Ever since CSGO came out, he's been in Necro Races, Neophyte.
So just like lurking on the 3rd or 4th tier kind of.
Yeah, he's always been in the best teams in his country, but then again, the region he's from isn't the strongest in terms of or within European CS, and that's just the same thing with Oskar, really, because Oscar's been around since forever, but he hasn't gotten that big shot in a big team until very recently. The best thing they actually got out of it in terms of getting recognition is with that Fraternitas team that did so well in a couple of online games and had that stretch for a couple of weeks where they beat teams they shouldn't beat, at least on paper. And now you see the results of it. Really, they're able to step into Hellraisers. They're doing a great job of it as well, showing that they're actually worthy of that chance.
It's It's great to see that we have some kind of a picture. We've got a framework of understanding of Seco. But of course, as usual, we do have an interview every week to investigate more deeply into these players and find out what they have to say. So let's hear what Seco had to say about some of his origins, and let's get to know more about him.
Attended the school in Bratislava, the capital city of Slovakia. It was economical university, or University of Economics. It was international business or management, and other things I wanted to be as a pro gamer. I used to have a lot of dreams that I wanted to do as a job, but only thing I found enjoyment in was being a competitive gamer, and it was this competitive environment of Counter-Strike. So here I am, doing what I can and doing what I love. It depends on what type of player I am, and since I joined Hellraisers, I kind of switched to a passive player, but also an entry fragger as T side. So it really differs, but if I had to say one player, maybe it would be a Freakazoid from Cloud9 from USA, because I just love his constantly aggressive plays and just trying to be the first fragger and being not afraid to die. I would say I'm a really versatile player, because over the past 6 months I played in a few teams, and I came from an AWPer to support player to game leader, and now I'm basically just entry fragger or something like that. So I really changed a lot. That's why maybe my stats are not that great, because I just had to switch over the few roles and I had to learn them first to play against top tier teams. I would say I'm really supportive player, but also I can switch over to being an aim guy or just anchored on the sides as a CT. I just really don't care. I just have to spend my time well to learn this position, and therefore I am really a compact player. So it's back in Copenhagen Games 2015. I used to play with Neophyte, and after that tournament I left the lineup to be focusing on study, and they picked up Oskar, and after some time they asked me if I can come back because they are struggling to find a new player, they're struggling to find new blood. I said yes, okay, let's try that, and it went great. We beat Envious, we had a really good results against Flipside, against top tier teams, and said, hey, maybe we can work this out and try to do that. So we played with Oskar, and I switched to in-game leader position. It was really hard, since my very first official match was against Envious, their top 5 team in the world. And I had to do it somehow, but luckily my experience got me really nice, and I managed to pull it off. Therefore we are playing with Oskar since then. It can be a lot of things. Probably the raw skill of the lineup, because we are really skilled players. I mean, Oskar is one of the top AWPers in the world. We have Angel as, in my opinion, one of the best in-game leaders in the world, because I really love his style of in-game leading, and all of us do. That's why we are sticking with him as an in-game leader still. The Kucher is awesome player as on a T half, and really supportive player on the CT halves. The next thing is obviously Simple being one of the top AWPers as well. We have double AWP setups, very strong double AWP setups, and I don't know, we just have a really good raw skill, I would say. No one can really beat us in aim duels. We just lose because of communication or being outstratted. So as I said, it should be communication, because often I got a question that how do we communicate? Well, we communicate in 5 different languages: Russian, Ukrainian, Czech, Slovak, and English. And sometimes very different and difficult to do it, but we managed to pull it off a lot of times. But we still have to do a lot of work. We have to learn positions, me and Oskar, in Russian and Ukrainian language, and that's really, really complicated for us. That's the one weakness. Maybe the second one I would point out is how some of the players easily get tilted during the games when nothing works out. They just got mad and blame each other. But yeah, that's the problem of personality, and it can change anytime. But it has to take this. It has to take some time, maybe 2 or 3 months, and the player will learn his mistakes, not to blame each other.
All right, that was really cool actually.
Yeah,
because we learned a lot about Stico there and Hellraisers.
Yeah, we learned that there's no way in hell they can actually talk to each other.
That's crazy. Well, we communicate in 5 languages. That's amazing.
And whenever you see a Scandinavian lineup being made, it's like, oh, how will they communicate?
I got this like Norwegian guy and he's Swedes.
Yeah, how will this ever work? And then you have someone be like, oh, it's pretty similar, which is fair enough. And there could still be issues. Even you saw the Dignitas lineup with who had Schneider being the sole Swede with a bunch of Danes. Initially, it's just like, well, it's not that big a deal. It should be okay. Eventually, Schneider is out of that team because of communication issues. And now you have this Hellraisers lineup, which is just like, where do you start?
It's cool though, because as you said, the strength of the team is that their individual skills through the roof.
Yeah. One
of the coolest things, we learned a lot of cool stuff about Stico there, but he's spent time as an in-game leader. From here, that's obviously a role that takes a lot of years and a lot of time to really develop. But he jumped into that role, so he has like an insight there. He's done AWPing. He's now doing entry fragging. He said it himself. He feels like he's a very versatile player because he's had to force himself to learn so much different takes of the game. So also looking at the Freakazoid as an entry fragger is an interesting thing.
That was pretty cool, and definitely not the answer I think most people would expect. And he likes him for the right reasons, I think, and that's the fact that he's got an unrelenting aggression when he plays, which is beneficial for the team.
Yeah.
So it's not the fact that I like him because he gets all the frags or all the glory, that type of thing, because Freakazoid definitely doesn't get all the glory for what he does. He actually gets actually way more hate than he should for the job he does, because what he does is so instrumental for Cloud9 to be successful. So it's really fun to see that people recognize that and they actually look to him as someone they can learn from.
It's probably like the least rewarding position right next to just being the support player, basically, because it's kind of is that same thing basically. You're supposed to be used up in you're like a flare gun, you get shot off and that's it.
Yeah, and in many ways you're cannon fodder. That's pretty much your job, and if you can get someone to go down with you, then that's great. And if not, it's like, well, you tried.
But it's cool also that he's saying I really like how Angel leads the team, and that respect there as well. It's very, very cool to see, and the versatility of the team is kind of nuts, because we saw previously Kucho, he would be picking up the AWP actually, and he was actually pretty good as like a passive defensive AWP. He's
really
actually
good static
really consistent.
Oh yeah,
and that's fantastic to have that. And Oskar being obviously an amazing AWPer himself. You have a lot of diversity there, because Angel sometimes picks up the AWP. He can just do crazy stuff with that. Of course, Simple's in there as well. But of course, we'll talk a bit more about that later. The Simple dynamic. But yeah, very cool. Anything particular that we haven't talked about that really stands out that you think is interesting with Stico?
No, not really. I think we've covered most of the bases. I
like his spirit, I'd say. I feel like the guy's got spirit, and that's like a very ambiguous thing to say.
Cheerleader spirit, or
he's got the hunger, he's got the flame. He's like like at the start he said, but this is like the one thing that I find like really enjoyable, like this competitive competitive gaming. This is like what I find fulfilling. Like that's so cool. Obviously, that you need that to be a very top level player. Otherwise, you can't. You
absolutely have to. And you could tell that he meant it when he was talking about having to switch various roles. The fact that he would just spend hours on hours just figuring out how to play that role properly. Like that was sole focus. And a lot of people would be, I guess, not that dedicated to the cause once they get swapped away maybe from their original role, which might have been their favorite role. So let's say you go from being an AWPer, which is something you think is really fun and you're probably pretty good at as well, but now you have to be someone who does something completely differently, and that's just gonna wear on you. And that's when you need to have the mentality that Psycho has. It's, well, I would just want to master every aspect of the game.
Indeed. Well, I guess we'll be having our first FPL match to look at we'll have that momentarily. And so we can jump into the game and start looking at some other players in particular and diving into some of the histories. I mean, that's one thing I'm looking forward to regarding having you on the show here, because if you guys don't know, Vendetta's got somewhat of a encyclopedic knowledge when it comes to like players and so on. So it's going to be interesting to see some of the facts you can bring us here.
What so for breakfast and all that good stuff.
So it's WT. That's Wenton. Is that Wenton?
WT is Venton. Yeah. So
Wenton,
who you
Venton.
last saw in
Acer.
Yeah, exactly. With a certain Indian leader that we all know and love.
That team imploded when Threat left. I was really afraid that was going to happen.
That was expected.
He was basically the dad of the team. So like any conflict within the team, you would have players going up to Threat like and messaging him on Steam,
Dad.
being like, exactly, yes, like, yeah, pretty much.
Venton's so being mean to
you.
he
said this, he said that. Like, okay, so. So yeah, that's unfortunate, but of course Benton's a great.
I'm kind of curious how Threat would actually deal with that if you'd be like, both of you go to your corner.
Yeah.
Now.
Well, I guess he gets the final say. I guess that's it. It's like you're right and you're wrong, and that's it. And that's the way it's got to be.
Speaking of
respect that,
just picked up 3 frags. But yeah, Benton is probably a player that most people wouldn't know too much about because pretty much his only team in, I guess, proper team in CS:GO has been Acer, and that's starting to be a while ago, and they never really made it quite to the top. They just got to the point where they started messing up for the top tier teams. But then obviously Threat quit, had to prepare for his move to Japan and all that, and that kind of sent everything into oblivion. I
just realized that like team-wise, this is quite funny because you got Wenton, of course he's a great Swedish player. You got Twist, and then Oskar. You know, both basically like ridiculous players individually, just amazing pug stars for sure. Yep. Then you got Taz in there. Obviously Taz is pretty awesome. You got Rattlesnake. That's actually kind of a scary pug lineup, I would say.
The Taz Rattlesnake combo on a team that seemed like it would just create so many golden moments if you had a POV stream. Yeah, the possibilities are definitely there for some fantastic entertainment. Yeah, I guess we can go over the lineups just quickly. You got Device there from TSM. Pretty familiar face, I'd say, for most people who follow CS. Same thing with Freiburg. AZ from Dignitas. Pyth spending that time wisely while he's in Europe, getting in some FPL. So he's going to be heading back to NA and Winterfox in not too long. And then you have Ridman, which is SAIP, which is going to ring a bell for those of you who followed CS:GO earlier on. SAIP was obviously a part of Bucket initially, the team person for the Twist and SAIP, which obviously they would have. It would be such a Swedish thing to have 2 people with pretty much the same name, just different spelling in the team. So we had SAIP and SAIP.
Oh, good.
Just to make that easy, Spitfire and Berg. But he hasn't played as actively. Actually, I didn't even know that he started playing again until FPL started, and I think that's kind of what kicked his activity back into gear again. And that's really fun to see. And he was the support player of the LGB team, who famously came top 4 with Dennis, Olofmeister, all of those guys. And after that, he stopped, but obviously Olofmeister, etc., didn't. But it's good to see him being back in action. On the T side, you already mentioned the fact that we have Oskar, Taz, Rattlesnake, Twists, Benton. Should make for a pretty good game.
Yeah, I mean, so far I mean, the Dust 2 pugs are always like going to be actually pretty awesome because it's a map where you can have really good matches with pugs because of just the nature. Everyone knows it so incredibly well. First things first.
Yeah.
And so that means that you can actually have like pretty high level coordination from a team point of view because everyone knows how it goes.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Everybody knows how to do a proper B split, how to do a proper catwalk push, how to flash someone out onto long, and they know the essentials of what you need to do on the T side to actually be effective. I would imagine that for most pugs, it'd be the CT side that's kind of the awkward thing, and then because it's going to come down to how you rotate and all that stuff. But seeing how it's a pug map, you're probably going to see a lot of rounds where people are just trying to take duels over and over again, and as long as the CT side has enough skilled players, then they can be perfectly fine. And it's not like nobody knows how to play CTE themselves. Like, even if it's a pug, everybody knows how to do proper anti-flashes, but the likelihood of them team flashing a couple of mates here and there is higher.
Yeah, it's definitely quite fun, especially like lends itself to those open engagements as well. Like the individual skill can really shine on this map, and you can have people doing crazy stuff, just like pushing all over the place.
Yeah, speaking of pushing all over the place.
Yeah, I think AZ did that. I think a few times already, just getting to T-spawn. Like that's his own personal objective, just get to T-spawn.
And this is something you'd never see in an actual game, obviously, because there's higher risks to a certain point. But this is something you're gonna see with a lot of pug matchups.
And Pitman or Pyth, whatever you want to call him. I'm gonna keep calling him Puts because I used to call him Pyth, and I had like people tweets telling me that it's Twitch or something. And then I know that you're not cool with this.
Yeah, no.
You're like, he's at the mercy of the commentators. But yeah, this must be so refreshing for him because he gets to play with good ping. And it's
I thought you were about to go a different direction with that, like good players.
Oh,
sorry, snap.
Damn. You went there. You went there.
But to be fair, this is a pretty different beast than just playing ESEA pugs.
Oh yeah.
Nothing. That's just the nature of the game because there's no, I guess, elite system or anything like that. Here you actually just play versus really good players, and that's just the nature of the game. So that's really cool to see. And you can tell this is also something that's going to happen in these pug games. People are going to pick up weapons they don't normally use. So you're going to see Freiburg opping, you're going to see Pyth picking up an op extensively, like stuff like that, because they can have fun with it, they can mess around. And obviously, just because they don't use it in official games doesn't mean that they're completely clueless as to what they do when they get the hands in their hand, weapon in their hands.
Okay. So what's the deal with Rattlesnake these days?
Because
how
do you mean? Do you think like he's still playing obviously because he's playing for easy skins? Yeah,
but okay, so I knew Rattlesnake because actually his first team that got into when he first got into a proper org, it was Dignitas, and it's actually I kind of had a hand in helping that happen because
are we talking back in 1.6 days?
1.6 days, yeah. He was playing
for Gold Break.
Yeah, a team called Gold Break, yeah, and I knew the manager of that team was a really good friend of mine, and I used to play a lot of CS with him, and I was in Dignitas at the time, and I had Odie's ear, and Odie at this point was like very reluctant to get a CS team because CS teams back then were really demanding, and so he'd always had very bad experiences with CS teams.
Yeah,
like people demanding like crazy salaries, and back then in 2005, like having
having a salary in 2005 was insanity.
Yeah, just having a salary.
You were hoping for like a war server and a Ventrilo server. And yeah, mouse pads if you were fancy, maybe a headset, but that might just be for the LAN event. Yeah. And then you were a big shot.
And the thing is, like, you had those few teams, like, you'd have, was MTW salaried back then? Yeah, SK would have been salaried back then.
Yeah.
SK is definitely salaried. And 4 Kings had a team,
I think
maybe
a lot of the
years before that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the German organizations were one of the first to kind of give players salaries. So Alternate, Akrana.
When we say salaries,
AMD,
we're talking like 100 euros, 200 euros.
Oh yeah. Like we're not talking something you can live off of. It's more like you can. It was the way you tagged yourself as a professional player. Like I earn money from this. And of course, like the tournaments, the prize monies were very like random and sometimes a little bit negligible. But yeah, so back then, not even paid out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my God. There's a huge period. You guys don't even know about this. Like, there's a huge period of time where like tournaments did not even pay out prize money. A lot of tournaments, like CPL for example, was a notorious one.
6G.
Just never paying out prize money.
Pretty much every tournament ever had a history of not paying out prize money.
It's pretty sick. And there was always the question as to whether with CPL and with Fu, how much money he actually got from that. And he could never get an answer out of him. I knew him quite well. Anyway, back to the point with Rattlesnake. So eventually, I managed to get Fen, who was the manager at the time, and Odie talking about this team. They're going to be like the next big thing from the UK. And Odie was always very good about like trying to bring up UK talent, even though UK never had necessarily all the best teams and players. And it ended up happening. They managed to meet on some ground that they could agree on, and then they played at an ice series and would have won that pretty easily. And they were having like really good events, and like all these players that looked like they're up and coming. I can't remember what the full lineup was. Was it Rattlesnake? Was it Pez? I want to say
Wes.
Wes. And if the players can't remember.
Was Wilzo playing on the team?
Who? Sorry.
Wilzo.
Yeah, Wilzo. Yeah, Wilzo was playing in that team.
So Wes, Wilzo, Rattlesnake. It's actually a lot of this usual suspects like Reality, which is Pete, a lot of those guys. Basically, those guys who ended up in that Dignitas team ended up switching over to Source. And that's where they had their big break and became one of the best teams of all time.
The CGS.
Or one of the couple of best players as well in CSS history. That's really cool. But we haven't seen too much of Rattlesnake. Obviously, he was one of the top dogs when CSGO was starting out, when he was playing in Mouse Sports together with PRB, Stinger, Husey, Wolzo, Pete, and different iterations. They kind of just mixed around the UK players from time to time. And they were probably the first team that had a real shot of beating NIP, together with Curse, which was not too Soul team. But they just imploded after a DreamHack, where they should have beaten NIP. They managed to throw that away, and sadly for them, they never came back to it, because Stinger went to fnatic, and after that he quit playing. Rattlesnake took a break because he was currently studying law, so he had to focus on that as well. And we didn't really hear too much from the UK scene in general after that.
The UK scene has its own cultural issues, it would seem, that you can argue
it's
that NA
a
has.
messed up scene.
And it's actually the reason why, because I dabbled a lot in the UK scenes, obviously being from the UK, but I would always end up playing with Swedish people, basically. And it was just because would just end up being better playing environments.
Yeah, exactly. That would
skill
make more sense.
and just for
better
winning,
players,
more or less.
friendlier people. You wouldn't get, your nan wouldn't be on fire after every game.
Ja, let's get Sverige.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so but yeah, I mean, because Rattlesnake definitely had this reputation and has this reputation of being like incredibly toxic. Like that, he's almost the definition of it. From people talk about that, he's like, if you had a dictionary definition for it in esports, his name would be next to it. Yeah, but that's actually like really true, right? So do you think this is fair? Do you think this is what's the deal there?
Again, I think it's it has something to do with cultural. Basically cultural background, and
but do you think it's a bit overblown in his case?
Yeah, oh, definitely.
So you think it's overblown?
Whenever I've played with him, he's been the nicest guy.
Yeah.
And sure, he's gonna get angry from time to time. Everyone does. Whether it's yourself messing up or someone else messing up something that's should be so easy for you that it's dumb, right?
Yeah.
That can trigger you, but I definitely think it's overblown to get a significant amount. But a big part of why a lot of these UK players are regarded as, toxic, to use a word I really don't like, but it's because most of the UK players, as you probably know with Richard Lewis and Thorin, they like their banter.
Oh, yeah.
And some people don't really have the same mindset around it, really.
Yeah.
So these, especially when we practice versus UK teams, because they had quite a few good ones in Source, you'd basically get abused for the first 5 rounds or something, then it would die down. And as long as you don't actually trigger off of that, then it's perfectly fine.
This is the thing for me, right? Is that for me, because for me, it's about being competitive. Is I want to win. I want to be the best player. I want to be the best team. I want to win stuff. I want to achieve stuff. So for me, I always had this really a huge pet peeve with people who would say, "Oh, I want to win." Like, I want to win, I'm competitive, I want to win. But then they basically shit talking their team essentially within a match, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you're gonna put people on tilt, so your team's gonna play worse. If you have a problem with how they're actually playing, then the most efficient and best way to bring it up is always after the game in demo review. And if you're not prepared to do that, you're not taking yourself seriously enough to achieve stuff. So basically, you're a massive hypocrite. Or I'm really hard about this stuff. I take this stuff very seriously. But that's the level of competitiveness I think that you need to be a professional level player. So
I think for the most part, when it comes to taking, or I guess trash talking, and that type of thing, UK teams would do it to their opponents.
Yeah.
More than anything else, but obviously if you look at, it's not as fun to see one guy trash talking someone from another team as it is watching him going off on one of his teammates, right? That's going to be a much bigger storyline.
Yeah.
And Rattlesnake has obviously been a high-tempered guy, but he never really means anything nasty with it.
Oh yeah,
it's definitely a case of him just wanting to win.
It's an emotion out there, basically.
Yeah, and it's definitely the case of.
So you'd have Mr. Miyagi basically like, you lack a discipline.
Yeah, it really is, and in a lot of cases you should be able, he's gonna trigger off the things that you should be able to do because it's something you've done in practice 8 million times. So there's no reason for you to mess it up in a game. And if you mess it up in a game and that's a direct result to you losing a round, then that's obviously going to be annoying.
Well, I think this is more like TSM's approach, for example, because as far as I know from what I've spoken to, when I've spoken to this kind of topic about when I speak about this kind of topic with them, they're very much similar to the way that I would deal with the situation, where it's like, okay, you address the situation after the game, like, okay, you're not performing, you're having issues here, we've been through this, like, you're making these mistakes. You need to clean up your act. We can help you to do that. But if you're not showing results, eventually you're gonna do something. We're gonna have to do something about this because this is an issue to us as a team producing the results we need. And so you have an understanding and compassionate view of it, and you're there to like help people, but at the same time, but that's like the best way to deal with it, because you're addressing the problem with maturity, and like you're giving that guy the opportunity to improve without like putting horrible pressure onto him. Because everybody's had that position where you feel really pressured. You feel like if your performance is linked to your chances like immediately being on the team or in people's good favors, which is like that's needless pressure that's gonna needlessly affect your performance.
It's gonna make it harder for you to perform. Yeah, for sure. And I know that Rattlesnake would still do that after the game, but he would also take it out on people within the game, which is something definitely you should be able to control to, I guess, a better degree, because obviously you don't want anyone on your team to go against you. But again, it's not something he does with ill intent. Like he's hoping to break his teammates. That's not the case at all.
It's actually funny because with like talking about the other players, like maybe going off on other players and stuff as a the whole banter sort of culture, whatever. For me, another thing when I was playing, I never liked to give any power to the other players by my ethos was always to treat every single opponent as the same. Like if it's in the context of CS, if it's Get Right, or if it's a guy from matchmaking, I want to treat them the same. I cannot like in matchmaking because obviously a completely different environment. But like if it's Get Right or a player that's statistically in a professional scene that's way worse than him, basically. Like I want to always treat them the same, because then you're always playing consistently. You can tweak that. Whereas if you're giving like power to who you're playing against, it's like but it's Get Right, and then that's like gonna change your decision making. There's like no positive thing that can come out of putting players on pedestals.
That's actually one thing that UK teams used to be really poor at, realizing that you kind of have to give respect to everyone you play against. Because when you get to a certain level, you can be beaten by anyone if you underestimate them hard enough.
Yeah, they're called E-frag. Right?
No, really. And I remember that just from being at tournaments with these guys, they would... well, actually, there's a really famous video of Rattlesnake, obviously.
Of course.
Playing against a Finnish team called Seacrass, or it might have been Rocket at the time, with Disturbed, actually, who recently started playing again, the Finnish guy. And he would get shot through the smoke. I think it was like 7 rounds in a row or something through the smoke on Inferno. And after every round, he would just be like, how can this guy kill me? He's so bad at the game. If I just saw him, he would be dead. And we just... that constant just reminder that, we should not be losing to these guys, but we're losing to these guys. That's not a healthy mentality to have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's not going to help you perform.
That's the thing. That's such an important thing. It's like you were talking about the other day. We had the push on Cobblestone, and I think it might have been, was it Complexity Rex Elevate? One of the teams on Cobblestone, basically, they were leaving a guy middle when they're doing like these B pushes.
Oh, that was Liquid with Fugly, wasn't it?
Was it Liquid? I think we've even seen it from 2 teams potentially, but Liquid and Fugly did it as well. And so you have to ask yourself the question, what am I actually trying to achieve here? Because you want to, and that's like another situation where it's like, okay, what am I actually trying to achieve here? Because what other variables are actually in play that are either kind of redundant or maybe even adversely affecting my overall goal? Yeah. Then that's another application of that kind of broad concept, which is universally applicable. So, and that's really important. I think practicing is such a big deal like that, because again, it's like useless to let's say like implement new strategies and do dry runs and stuff like that, but never to like properly review games or something. You got to always have all the pieces of the puzzle in place, and you got to review stuff so you can spot all these issues.
Oh, for sure.
And I think demo watching is the thing that most people shy
skip
away
out
from
on,
the most, because I know why
it's probably the most tedious thing to do.
I think it's because people just find it hard. It's like legit. It's just hard because if you don't know what to, like, where do you start? Because I know I had that when I first looked at them. I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at.
For? Yeah.
I'm not getting anything out of it because I don't know what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's pretty much, well, I've seen myself do this because I did it
exactly
an hour ago.
Yeah.
So you know that, well, I'm going to die here, but you don't really know what to look for. Like, how did you actually die in that situation?
Yeah. You know what it's like, actually? Because we went to, between the Europe and NA cast, me and my dad had like the super fast gym session just to...
True, yeah.
Because it's something like I like to do because it just wakes me up massively between the casts. And you know, we're talking about this like when you're new to something like, especially like fitness, because it's such a wide field and it's not solved. There's lots of variables, and even variables that have been, let's say, solved for some people are not going to be applicable to you. So you have this like huge thing it's hard to understand without experimentation. So you actually have to sit there and work that yourself. Yeah, and so at the beginning, it's so difficult to get through all the, like, you don't know what is good information, what's bad information. And it's exactly the same with demos. Once you get there eventually, I guess, once you get over that hump and you get to like some framework of understanding of how to process the data, then you're like, boom, every single demo I watch now, I'm getting stuff out of it. This looks good. I can figure stuff out.
And that's why I guess it's important to keep the gray-haired people around. Right? Because they've been through this, and they're going to be probably the biggest help you can have if you're a young upcoming player, to actually tell you that this is what you need to look for. Yeah, these are the kind of key points that you have to keep in your head when you're going through a demo or watching someone else play, for that matter, not just yourself, but what are they doing that's actually correct.
We've been through this.
Yeah, exactly. We've done the hardships. That's definitely a massive help for people, because I think that's, you know, coming back again to the pug mentality, you're not really considering what kind of actions you're doing to get kills and frag a lot of people and that type of thing, because it's working. And there's actually a Norwegian player called STB who we kind of joke around with it whenever we do something absolutely just incredibly dumb, but it works out. We always use his quote, which, well, it worked. Right? Like,
okay.
That's basically the justification for you doing something dumb.
Let's go.
Yeah, that's why you need kind of the old guys to point that out for newer players who are basically going with that mentality. Well, it's working, so why not?
But this is like such an interesting thing, because when I started playing poker, I started to realize like I really started to understand like the outcome-orientedness, because with poker you play like so many hands. Just the sample sizes of hands that you're playing and decisions you're making is so much over a short time. And in a game like Counter-Strike or Quake or any esports game, the sample size, like comparatively over the time that you're exerting that, whatever that strategy or whatever it is like so much longer. Whereas in poker, it's basically you do like one strategy, you're applying that like 100 times in an hour. In like a game, maybe it's like 2 times or something. So you don't get the same scale of understanding of what's really going on.
It takes way more time.
Exactly, and so this is another thing with configging too. A lot of people will try and use settings and stuff, and then after like 2 days, they'll stop they'll be like, oh, that didn't work out. So you need like a good month of trying some new settings and a new setup to know if that will work for you. You've got to take time to adapt. But
I thought you only had to download first config. That's not how your game is going.
Oh my god.
That's actually also something that blows me away. That somebody would rather go with what someone else is doing than personal preference.
Yeah. Well, I can kind of understand it, but I know I know why people do it, but I know why they shouldn't do it as well.
I can understand it from a fanboy perspective, because I was similar when I started out, but that's something that quickly shut off me to the point where if you go really far back and you want to talk about like the keyboard bindings for early versions of CS, which was basically Quake. So you have, you use arrow keys and left control and numpad, stuff like that, like home page down, all that stuff, which is just a complete mess if you try to do that now, right?
If you use like Toxic basically, for those who don't know, is considered to be the best aimer of all time in Quake.
Yeah,
and he
Swedish,
is
obviously.
Yeah, he's Swedish, and he deserves that title. He is a beast, and but if you look at his setup, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
He goes forwards and backwards with like mouse 1 and mouse 2. He shoots with spacebar. Right, and like I think his left and right key are like some keys. I think there's like the comma and the full stop or something. Like it's completely just out of whack.
The
it's crazy.
only thing he's missing is inverted mouse at this point.
I wonder if he uses it. I can't remember if he uses it or not, because he might do that.
One of the best players one of the best Norwegian players from 1.6, and just one of the best Norwegian players ever, Usam. He used inverted mouse.
I use inverted mouse.
Yeah, you're a special kind of guy.
A lot of Quakers do it, man. A lot of the best aimers in Quake use inverted.
Yeah,
that's very common in Quake.
You can imagine if you've played with a non-inverted mouse for let's say the 2 years you've played CS, and then you all of a sudden figure out that your favorite player Yusam is now playing with inverted mouse, and you download his config, and you're like, oh yeah, like this is totally gonna work.
The funny thing is that the invert switch is actually the hardest thing to switch. It's because I know people that have tried it. I've tried it just to see, right? How is it, you know? And it's sometimes, right, okay, so I've used inverted for 15 years. I've been playing with this, like tens and tens of thousands of hours of FPS with that. And sometimes I look at it, like I look at what my hand is doing, and like this makes no sense. Like even now, I'm looking at it, like this doesn't make sense. Like how do I move my mouse here? And I'll look at my hand, and it would like go in the opposite direction. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. But that's what happens.
Yeah, a teammate of mine back in 2009, named Tiller, he also one of the better aimers in Norway in CS, and he would play with an inverted mouse. And he also had that super old school setup where he was running around with the arrow keys and whatnot. And I literally couldn't jump up a slope on Dust 2 onto the site. Because you have a certain way that you move with the mouse, right? You do like kind of a swing where you move your mouse upwards if you don't have an inverted mouse. If you do that with an inverted mouse, you're not going anywhere. You're actually just going backwards eventually.
Nice.
And it's a complete mess.
It's good times. It's actually funny, but I understand why people would like download a pro player's config, because it's like, well, what I'm doing doesn't work. This guy, this is Forrest. Forrest seems, he plays pretty good. What he has, that must work. These settings must work at some degree, right? I guess that's the logic going on there. But of course, it is like. But actually, that said, there's a lot of intricacies and nuances to mouse mechanics, like how you use a mouse based on the style of. Like let's say how big your hands are, the style that you want to use, whether you want to use claw grip or palm grip, the kind of mouse pad, the way that you're sitting. Like there's a lot of like little mechanics and then techniques within that once you've set that up. Yeah. Like are you going to be palming the mouse? Are you going to lift your palm up? Are you going to pivot with the wrist? Are you going to be doing big swiping motions? It all affects how whether Wecksell is even a good option for you, because Wecksell is a very legitimate option as well. Yep. I used that for some years. Once you learn to use it, it's very good. You don't have to. I switched back to.
I think Kerrigan still uses acceleration.
He does, yeah.
And at least up to the point where he got a new PC that didn't properly. I think he got a PC with Windows 10, and then acceleration didn't work properly, or it was Windows 8.
I'm really happy because in Quake, obviously, there was always a consistent formula for it, so you never really had to worry. Yeah. But I know in CS, like when I was in those acceleration days, it was very, very difficult for me to switch over to CS, because CS did have the same sensitivity options, and you could use raw input and everything. But the formulas for the acceleration were completely different, so it's like you couldn't really do that. It's just one of the reasons why I switched away from Wecksell a long time ago. But there's a program now that's very good. It's created by a guy, I think it was on Global Offensive. It popped up there. But like one of the guys from Reflex actually coded some third-party program which allows you to set the acceleration formula, and you can just open it up.
Is it the DPI wizard guy?
I have no idea actually what else he's done, but yeah, it's very, very cool, because that can allow you the consistency you need across games, which is really important.
True. I guess the moral of the story is that you just have to find something that works with your personal preference and stick with it. Yeah. Don't cower to what everyone else is doing.
And you also got to try as well. Like, for example,
you have to try a ton of different settings. I mean, that just comes with any type of thing you do. It's like, even if you're playing an instrument or in any sort of field, you have to try different options to see what works best for you, and that's going to take time regardless. So you're going to have to be aware of that and not get too down on yourself because stuff is not going as planned right away.
Yeah, and there is definitely a lot of benefit to consistency, like sticking with stuff, and even if you're going through a hard time. But the other thing as well is like with instruments and so on, or typing on a keyboard, or if you want to run faster or something, you have to try to the point where it's actually uncomfortable. Like, so let's say you want to be a guy that can. Let's say you're slow to find your targets, or you're struggling with tracking. You have to physically focus and try to be faster. It's like, for example, you're not going to improve your times when it comes to, let's say, on running, if you're just running at the same pace all the time. You improve the times by pushing yourself, and so you have to be able to focus or have practice time where you can focus really, really hard. And this is what deathmatch can be like. I mean, usually the best warm up for me is usually why you usually go to Quake, and I am from Quake anyway.
Yeah.
But what I find is that I'm doing so much mouse movement all the time, all over the place, and just focusing for like 20 minutes, and that just loosens everything up. I won't need almost any of those movements in the game necessarily, but it's just like, I don't know, this dose of focused warm up really helps me.
Yeah, get into the groove.
Yeah, it's got to put that effort in.
Yeah. So that was a slight tangent about Rattlesnake.
Man, that turned into so many things. So many things.
Yeah.
Okay, did we end the discussion?
I can keep going.
We haven't talked about the game at all. Just been playing in the background. Been having basically a podcast here. But it's cool though, because I think a lot of people that would be interested in the show are definitely aspiring players or people that are interested in improving their game. So maybe we've given some useful insights there. I don't know. Either way, who out of all these players do you think is the most interesting to watch, or is there somebody from it? Because of course there's Device there.
Yeah.
And Dorian's like, Device is the best player in the world. Statistically, you can make the argument.
It's depending on what you're looking for. Obviously, if you just want to see what potentially the best player in the world does, then Device is going to be your player of focus. If you want to look at, well, I want to look at someone who's normally a renowned entry fragger, then you've got Freiburg to look for. If you want to see what I guess a support role player does, then you have Scythe to look at. And Alpers, then you have plenty to choose from. You can either go with Twist, Oskar, or Rattlesnake, or Device for that matter. So you've got plenty of options.
Actually, it actually reminded me of a point I wanted to talk about there, which ties slightly into the theme previously, and that huge tangent which lasted for about 20 rounds. And it was the idea that when you're playing these pugs, because we're saying like it's hard to say with pugs, what do you do? It's not the same as playing in a team. So when you're practicing, you talk about this focus thing, you got to consider like what realistic expectations can you have from like the pug, because you can't like rage at people for not playing properly because it's a pug, right? But you also yourself. It's a good opportunity to actually practice certain things, like you were saying. Maybe we'll see Freeboy with the AWP, for example, right? So you go into the pugs, use this as something to practice. Like if you're going to matchmaking, you're not going to be able to rely on your teammates. So don't try to practice stuff that relies on your teammates. You get good practice though by relying on things that say you want to practice how kind of Get Right does a lot of stuff. Sometimes Get Right's got loads of self-pop flashes, self-smokes to like break certain areas alone to open up the map for his team. Try stuff like that. That's really useful. That's a useful way to use the matchmaking when you can't team play.
And don't turn it into you just baiting out teammates and being the last guy alive, because
that's the worst.
That's the simplified way of looking at what Get Right does. Like, oh, he's never with his team and he just lets them die so he can be the hero. That's definitely not the case. But you can definitely see people trying to emulate that, and that's something Hiko talked about as well, being a problem in NA, that everybody wants to be lurker.
Oh yeah.
And everybody's just kind of disregarding their teammates because they want the stats. That's obviously a bit of an issue.
Oh my god.
There you go.
That is the
How
most.
is Rattlesnake still alive?
That's the most. What?
Yeah.
That's the most ridiculous engagement. Oh my god. Also, Team Oscar's going to win.
Yeah, Team Oscar actually brought it back because Team Freiburg were looking pretty dominant. I think they ended the first half 10-5 in favor of Team Freiburg, so they've gotten 2 rounds on the CT side.
Freeboy.
Yeah, there you go. 10-5. So it's been pretty dominant, and you can see Rattlesnake, who we talked at length about, sitting there with 27 frags. And that's also kind of funny because obviously when you don't play in a professional team that's active and around for a long time, people are going to forget you, they're going to think you're washed up, all that stuff. And it even happened to the NIP players. People are talking about, well, they're not that good anymore. No, like these guys haven't lost their skill.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just that they're not in a scenario or have the opportunity to actually showcase what they can potentially do, and also
everybody's better. Like
everyone else is better. Yeah, exactly. So it's harder to have those like games every single time. But
that's a cool flash. Do you see that? Yeah. I didn't know about that one. That's actually quite a cool one. Yeah, I hadn't consideed that. Actually, I didn't know that I'd even seen that.
You do know the B version of that, right?
Yeah. That one's really cool. Yeah, but that's like quite cool.
So many people mess that up. It's like, guys, I'm gonna pop flash into B.
Yeah, and you flash the entire team.
Flash 3 teammates and the retakes over.
I always say when I'm gonna do that one, I don't know if this is gonna work, guys.
Bear with me.
Fair warning.
Put your goggles on.
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah.
So, well, this could be overtime. Because right now there's no money on Oscar. Team Oscar.
Yeah, Team Oscar will get the money to buy up in the last round, though. You can tell. Even in pugs, they're not going to do completely dense buys where they just throw their money away. Because obviously, yes, it is very free-flowing play and all that good stuff, but it's not like...
Well, there are prizes in the ladder,
oh, yeah,
so people want to win the prizes.
If you win FPL, I think it's 5 times, you can buy a car. That's how significant the prizes are. Because then you could buy the FACEIT Fiat.
Yeah. I wonder if anyone... I think there are people that have enough to do that, actually.
That'd be insane. I'd easily buy a car if you could do that. Holy hell.
You just go in on the car? Nice.
This is a Fiat 500, isn't it?
FACEIT brands, yeah.
Yeah. The Fiat 500 is a badass car.
Cinquecento, I think, right?
I love that you're looking at Reese. Like, Reese, you're Italian. How is it? Is it up to date? Is it right?
I can't remember. Well, that's 5 and 100, so...
550.
Alright, so... It's cool to see... I mean, AZ's been getting more and more love, because AZ is a player that... Obviously, he's playing for Dignitas right now, but he had his chance kind of on the
Dignitas.
older version of TSM, which was Dignitas under Fetish's rule. And back then, he kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. And it was mostly just a lack of experience. And
the fact that they utilized them pretty poorly.
Oh, you say so?
Yeah, and they even said so after, after the incident, I guess. Just from talking to the TSM guys even at APM.
Yeah.
They were talking about how, well, they kind of brought AZ in and they just put him in the role that was left open. There was nothing catering to the skill set that AZ had. And that's obviously going to be really hard for, as you said, an unexperienced player who doesn't really have that much knowledge about what to do, how to play properly at that high of a level. And then going to have to completely readapt yourself. And that might not play to your strengths even as a player, so you're going to need to have time to actually acclimate for that. That's a really tough job and a really tough task for a young player. So I think it's a good experience for him, obviously, having played through that, but people obviously gave him a really hard time because he didn't get the same amount of frags that he did in 3D Max and his previous teams.
Yeah, that's what's interesting about him and his position right now, because obviously he's, if anything has happened to anybody on TSM, if nothing works out, he's the first guy in. And even if not, right now Dignitas have a great lineup. I think they're been hitting their stride. It's a shame they've had some lineup troubles lately, but
they're still going to major.
Who's replacing
Tensky?
Okay, Tensky.
So it's going to be a full Danish lineup for the major.
Cool, that's going to be interesting. I'm very curious to see how well they do. I'm a big fan of how Pimp plays Counter-Strike. I think he's a very smart, versatile player. Yeah, and he's very clutch as well. And he really steps it up on the big stages, which is what you need. Good experienced player, very important with younger players on the team. And
actually, one of the players who've impressed me the most with that within that Dignitas team is actually MSL, because he hasn't been an Indian leader primarily in his previous teams. Like in Western Worlds, it was Glaves, and before that, it's constantly been different people. But he's been playing with pretty much every Indian leader from Denmark there is, at least from the shore scene. So he's definitely picked up a lot of stuff, and I was surprised to see how good of a job he did so quickly with Dignitas, kind of being his first real Indian leading job. So that's pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, in-game leading something is quite interesting. Like myself personally, I don't think. I mean, I would need a lot of practice doing it.
I think anyone would.
Relatively competent doing it, but I don't want to do it. Basically, like if I have, I would be much better like after the game, for example, and being the guy that just would.
But what's your reasoning for not wanting to do it in game?
Because it's the type of player that I am. I'm much more like an explosive kind of frag-based player. I've always been a mechanical player, basically.
You're an NA player.
To me, I love how you say that. You're an NA player. But yeah, that was always my thing. Like
taking words out of Hiko's mouth, pretty much. I
wouldn't be like my skill set wouldn't necessarily be like lucky like that. So that definitely strikes me out as a potential NA player. But
you want the frags.
But I would be.
You want to be in the midst of it.
I would be like
as an leader.
Mid-round fragging. Sorry.
You can still do that as an leader. Just look at Kerrigan.
I mean, AWPing is something as well that's always been pretty decent for me. But yeah, just versatility in the fragging kind of departments. But I'm a Quake player at heart, so
yeah. What do you guys know strategy?
Yeah, just gotta run around and shoot dudes.
Yeah. No, okay, let's be fair. Quake is pretty complex.
Yeah, Quake is awesome. I wonder one day if there will be a resurgence there, but
Slasher still believes.
Slasher, man. Slasher's disappeared, hasn't he?
He works for the score, doesn't he?
He works for the score, but it felt like he's disappeared.
Well, I guess with Quake,
he used to be
as well.
Because he used to be much more kind of in the public eye with a lot of his journalism, but
with Live on 3.
But I think I'm not sure what happened. There was something that happened. I'm not sure exactly. But I guess we're stuck in the smoke here. Get to see Freiburg's picture, which is nice with the cards. Freiburg's got all the cards.
I love the new pictures that Anapi has.
Yeah, they're really cool.
Magic.
Yeah. It's actually quite funny because originally, because it's something that, is a term that I really like to use like very early on, especially, in Cologne when they were winning that tournament without it looked like they were losing the entire time, and I was like, oh well, they've won the major now. But so it felt like really like a great thing to say then, like Nip Magic's like magical, and somehow they managed to make it happen. It's like really cool. Yeah. But I remember Get Right at the time was just like really kind of offended by that because he felt like you're basically playing down the fact that they're making it happen with their own skill, and that's like not really. It's kind of like a little bit of misunderstanding there.
Yeah, actually, if anything, it should be a compliment because Nip was the only team that could look really awful but still win.
Yeah, exactly.
So because they did amazing things at times. So 90% of the time you would be like, this is not the Nip we know, and that would frustrate you. But then you'd have 1 or 2 rounds where someone just did something absolutely insane, and you'd be like, okay, there's that Nip magic.
Yeah, it's actually amazing. That tournament was so interesting because some of the rounds that they won, like how insanely important.
Freiburg's round versus Cloud9 on Cobble.
Yeah,
hiding in that corner, like
And I think even Freiburg on Inferno, when there's, I remember like
some double entry in Banana.
Yes, there was that, but also there was one really key round I remember where it's like I can't remember which team was it. They walked into like a stack on B, and NIP had nothing. They had absolutely nothing.
Yeah, classic UK banter. But this is kind of what UK players do. They don't mean anything by it. It's just that's how chat works for the UK people.
Also, these guys know each other super well. So
because Device is a source player, obviously Rattlesnake. Well, he's played every iteration pretty much, but
yeah. Although he was reluctant. He was reluctant in Source, though, wasn't he? He didn't really play unless it was CGS. Rattlesnake.
No, that's when he made the swap. Yeah, but he obviously continued with it afterwards.
Because I remember he was a big hater of Source. I remember a lot of people were.
Most people were. Yeah. And to be fair, the game was pretty unplayable until like 2007.
Yeah.
Ish.
That's true. That's very true.
So that was a good 3 years where everything was just chaotic and mayhem. So it's understandable, and it's a bit of a shame because it turned out to be a pretty decent game, even though people will reluctantly say that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The purists.
It's kind of like I'm assuming how you would be about Quake 4.
Quake 4 took a while to get good.
Yeah, exactly.
It took a while for them to fix it. Unfortunately, it was too late when they managed to fix it. But
yeah, and that's the thing with Source as well. Supposed to be the game that took over for 1.6, but it was 3 years away from being 3 years away, kind of. Thing, and at that point, people have given up on them. It's limited how much patience you can ask of people, especially when they're making a living out of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the scene. Well, it's interesting. Counter-Strike's always had the support of Valve, so it's always been growing because of that.
Well, when you say support of Valve, what you really mean? We had Steam, but that's more just a good business plan.
Man, I remember the old days of Steam where friends would be down for like 3 months at a time.
Yeah, but nobody actually used Steam Friends until like what 2012.
Yeah, because it was always down. That's why it's always down.
Pretty much didn't know it was a feature. I was like, oh, this is a thing now. But yeah,
I remember once. I think it was 2003. I was playing like 1. It would have been 1.6 right then, and I was doing
like late 2013.
I was doing like a work placement at a university, at one university, doing like computer engineering or something, and I was like, oh, they have like Counter-Strike, and like all these guys are playing Counter-Strike in in this kind of like gaming room. And so like I went in there and they're like, oh, you know, you should try this game. It's like, and I'm like, you know, I've been like grinding this game, and so I'm like wrecking everyone with like 20 FPS, just, and like hitting all these headshots everywhere. And they're like, oh my god, you're cheating. And I was like, mate, I'm not cheating.
I'm sitting next to you.
But they got pissed, man. They were really angry. They were super angry. They actually pulled me away because they didn't want to play with me because they thought I was cheating. On 20 FPS.
Into the back alley.
Well, I think I was 16 at the time or something, so it would have been a bit sketchy. But yeah, that was quite funny. So I just sat down on your computer. How on earth am I like? Anyway.
Oh, good old days.
The good old days.
That's actually kind of seeing how, when you played previously, if you've played for a long time and you played, be it Quake, be it CS 1.5, 1.6, Source, when you had like 80 FPS, that was the shit. Like, damn, your computer was good. 80 FPS, rocking that 60 hertz. Well, actually with CRT,
man.
Yeah, that was actually proper monitors. But yeah, like 80 FPS, that was amazing. You only drop down to 50 FPS in smokes.
This is another thing.
And now it's like if you drop under 200, you're like, god damn, this PC is trash. I can't use this.
Oh yeah. And back then, of course, actually, as well as tournaments not paying out prize money, there was this huge issue. There was this period between 2006 and 2000 and I guess it would have been 10,
yeah.
Whereby you couldn't get CRTs anymore for tournaments, and there were no good TFTs or panels available. So the best thing you could get is like these crappy monitors that would be at best like if you had a low enough resolution, like 75 hertz or something. So imagine like how impossible that is to play on. But there was no alternative. The only tournament that could get the CRTs was usually ESWC, if they hosted it in like France or something.
Yeah.
And in America they could get the CRTs out there for you. But most tournaments didn't get that. And it wasn't until like DreamHack 2010, I think, one of the DreamHacks, where I think the Samsung 2233RZs came out.
Yeah.
Those first 120 Hz panels.
That was a godlike monitor. Holy hell.
I still use one actually. I have one still.
Mine broke, sadly enough. I remember going to a playoff event in 2010, and I couldn't, like, there wasn't room for my CRT in my carry-on, obviously, and I didn't have a big enough briefcase to send it, you know, to check it in.
Yeah.
So I had to buy a monitor, and it was probably like 3 weeks after that monitor came out, and I never looked back.
But this is the thing as well, like back then you had to buy a terrible monitor and then play on it. Like everyone at home could play on CRTs or whatever if you wanted to, but because tournaments didn't have them, if you were a serious player, you actually had to buy a TFT that was terrible to use it so that you didn't go to LAN and be like, what the hell is this? You have to be used to it already. The
one thing that was a bit of a saving grace is that there were a lot more BYOC tournaments at the time, well, back in the olden days, so you would actually be able to bring your CRT to a lot of the LAN events. So that is something that, but obviously for the teams that would go to China, all around in Asia, travel to North America for tournaments. So basically, like the big
LANs,
dogs,
all the proper LANs, yeah.
That would be, it would be much worse for them. But if you think about like DreamHack winners, DreamHack summers, which was still BYOCs, but big teams would still go to them, then you could bring your CRT and start wrecking people.
And this is the thing, like people complain about monitors sometimes today, and I'm like, you don't even know.
Have no idea.
You really just don't understand, do you? Like, you have no idea.
Same thing with PCs.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can only get 120 FPS.
Yeah, I remember playing finals on PC that were just like constantly dropping to like 60 FPS.
Yeah.
It's just like
that was fine.
And this is 2006 as well as it was a Quake 4, so. Oh god, that was really hard. It's like I'm doing like a really important quad run in like double overtime game. Oh, you know, I guess I'm gonna take the route where I'm gonna get the best FPS. Like I actually did that. That was the decision making. I'm not gonna take the optimal route for frags. I'm gonna take that route where I know I can survive and not give away the quad damage, and then make sure that I can get some control for my team versus removing all their items that they have. Like those are the two choices. One is the best one, and one's the one where I know that I will survive.
But people would do that constantly before if you knew that you were playing versus a team online, and you know that one of the guys, because if you're playing at a high level, you probably know the players fairly well, to the point where you know that they have either a really horrible computer or they have a decent one. Because if you play with them and they're constantly bitching about the fact that they're dropping FPS, all that stuff, you know that they're gonna have issues. So you'd actually do stuff when you're playing versus his team, being like, well, we know that he's holding this site, and he has a real issue when there's more than 3 smokes down. So We're going to throw 4 smokes down and basically mess him up because he's not going to be able to do anything at all.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember moments like that too in the really super old days of Quake in like 2003, where it's like this, like some people have like really bad internet, so so you could actually lag them out by hitting them with a lot of stuff. When it's the stuff on the screen, you could actually just like cause them to time out by hitting them. It's so ridiculous. And there's some spots where like the plasma gun, for example, you shoot that and people's FPS would go really low, or again they would like the internet would just like get the bandwidth to get choked and they would just time out. It's so ridiculous. Like it's so absurd.
First edition of DDoSing right there.
Yeah. Basically.
Plasma DDoS.
Too many packets. that was just ridiculous.
Luckily, we're done with those days.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for the days when you can get sick ping everywhere. I just want that.
Where you get like 20 ping to the US.
Yeah.
That type of thing. You can actually get pretty decent
Australia,
ping from the UK to New York servers.
Yeah, I think you can get it as low
like
as
80, 90s.
80. But there's also servers that are closer than New York. I forget, and even a time zone that's like -4 instead of -5, I think, which from GMT, which is I can't remember where is it in.
Greenland? Like I don't know where you're.
It's in North America, but obviously it's next to New York City somewhere. But
it might be more up north, I suppose.
I'm not sure which it is, but you can get better ping than New York. I know that for sure. But the thing is that New York has the most servers, so you'll often end up playing there.
Yeah.
So, well.
The game is over.
We we're just reveling in the old days.
Yeah.
We're showing our age.
We're old people.
Yeah. I do feel really old now, actually. Talking about CRTs. CRTs are still actually superior when it comes to the response time because they're instantaneous.
Less tearing.
Basically
no tearing.
Instantaneous, and it's impossible for the panels the TFTs, the LCD panels for that to have that effect. So.
I would probably still. I remember there was one Samsung monitor that it was still a CRT, but it was kind of the flat screen version of a CRT. So instead of having that
the FSTs,
the massive thing behind it, you kind of cut off the entire thing, and it would still work like a proper CRT. Always wanted one of those. I probably would still use one if they were still for sale. Because that was just a super good monitor, and 17 inches monitor probably feels too small nowadays, but I could never imagine back in the days playing on anything bigger than 17 inches. Yeah. Because 24 inches, to me, that's still too big. I was super sad.
For a CRT, that's like, well, this is 50 kilograms. It's like, let me...
That's so good, like when you have... Because obviously people would get like 19 inches monitors, which weighed like 20 kilos plus, and you're a 14-year-old kid carrying that into wherever the line is played. Oh
my god, the good old days. Yeah, I remember doing that, like buying them and just So guys, we have a giveaway just like last week as well. We'll be giving away a Deagle Blaze, and all you'll have to do is just type in the chat because we're going to open up our little AMA section first of all, and then I think I'm doing this backwards, but it's fine. So we'll do a bit of an AMA first. And you guys can just ask us any questions you want, and we will answer a few questions, and you'll be entered into the giveaway automatically by asking or just typing anything in the chat. So, yeah, you can fire away with the questions, and I
have a chance of being just like Envy. They all have Deagle Blaze.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. It is a really nice. I really like the.
It's a badass skin.
It might be my favorite Deagle skin, actually.
Really?
I think so, yeah.
To me, it's like the epitome of... obviously, this is generalization, but you feel like the redneck of the team when you have a Deagle Blaze.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm just like... I want it to be a possibility to hang like a Wonderbaum under it.
Nice.
That kind of thing, just go full out. But, yeah, it's actually a bit of a running thing, running joke, at least within like the Norwegian... pug community, that if you have a Deagle Blaze, you instantly become better with the Deagle.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
It got flames on it and stuff. Nice. Same thing with UMP Blaze. Like, obviously, you're going to be a better player with that.
Imp is legit.
Yeah. So,
nice. And if you guys have any specific questions for Vendetta, please fire away, because... Oh my god, you guys, grow up. Ask some questions. God damn it. These kids these days. Kids these days.
Back in our day.
Yeah.
When everything was better. The music was better.
Everything, man. Even the well, okay, no. Actually,
everything.
Yeah, because I was just about to say, like, trying to what did I do back in the day while I was playing games?
Yeah.
So that was completely technology, just everything was related to technology. So no, everything was terrible.
Worse. Yeah.
Except CRTs. CRTs are good.
Yeah.
But the problem with CRTs is that the image quality and the colors are just like horrendous. But man, they're smooth. They're so smooth.
I actually, I think that's more something that you get used to. If you play enough on a CRT, you're not going to be that affected by it. It's kind of the same thing when you start playing with saturation. You start messing around with that. Because as you can see, Freiburg is one of those guys who just max saturation.
Well, the problem now is that, because, I mean, you want to play on a high resolution because just to be able to see people on the really huge distances.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they blend in with the colors. So that's, and also just seeing people in the dark, for example, you know, there's another reason to do that. Because that's a problem that you can have. Like, I feel like when I play with 4:3 resolution or something, that does feel better. Like, it feels better to do that.
Yeah, it feels smoother.
It feels a lot smooth. It does feel a lot smoother, but then you sacrifice being able to see stuff.
Yeah, then that's kind
like
of a pivotal thing, and that's why I'm still surprised by so many players still using 4:3 or even stretched resolutions instead of just playing it at a native resolution for the monitor, because it doesn't really affect your FPS that much. And most monitors, at least if you're playing at a high level, you should have a monitor that is able to go at least 120 hertz. Some even go to 144 now. So yeah, that still blows me away, because I played with 4.43 aspect ratio throughout 1.6 and CSS. But as soon as I started playing CS:GO, I was like, this isn't working.
Yeah,
it literally felt blurry.
Yeah,
that was a weird thing to me. So I had to swap over to a native resolution, and I'm super happy with it.
Yeah, it's something you can get used to pretty easily. But every time I switch back, I'm like, I wish I could play this.
Well, I still do that every now and again. It's the typical thing when you're having a bad game. You're like, oh, well, maybe I should just try this. Maybe this helps. And then you're, well, I can't see anything at all.
Well, it seems like we have a question, so let's see. It took you guys long enough. What do we got? Reese? What do we got?
Do you think semi-pro CS is better or worse today than in the 1.6 era?
Ooh. So if pro CS is worse or better today than it was in 1.6?
I can add something here, because I feel like now, these days, at least you can get a chance, where I feel like there was a really, really big issue being for there to be enough orgs or exposure for you to even be seen. Because I know like back in the old days, it blew my mind how many sick 1.6 players there were in Sweden, in Norway, in Finland, that just would never get onto top team because you wouldn't know the right people. Or so on and so
there was definitely a case of some, I guess, the top group of players in certain countries being kind of shut in and not allowing a lot of players to play with the very best. But at the same time, back in the day, you still had BYOC tournaments, so you could go to a DreamHack, you could go with a mix of your friends, and you could potentially beat. Oftentimes, either you'd have a really good team, just a really solid full lineup going to that event, or you'd have a bunch of mixes consisting of players from SK, from NIP, from Eyeballers, just from all the like sick teams.
Good old Eyeballers.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd have like a team with, let's say, Spawn, Hyper, Berlin, like all those guys would be in a team, and if you somehow knock them out, that would just instantly put you on a radar. And you don't really have that opportunity nowadays, which is a shame. The closest thing you're going to get to that is something like FPL, because you're going to be playing against the best players in Europe. So that's a chance for you to get your name out and actually showcase your actual skill as a player. But you don't have the BYOC tournaments that you could just go with your group of friends, play, do well, get that upset result, and go from there. You don't really have that. I think the closest thing we have is Copenhagen Games.
Do you feel like it's worse now?
No. Well, from that aspect, I think it's worse. But obviously, there are several avenues to get into Pro CS now compared to back in the day, but you're not in the same tournament environment, and I think that's a really big thing.
So I hear some pros and cons, but overall, is it better or worse, would you say?
The level is better, but simply because there's so many more competitive players and competitive teams. That's the really cool thing. We've never had a better scene in terms of competition in CS history than we have now, and that's even if you want to be nostalgic and talk about like the SKs.
It's marginally better.
It is better overall.
Okay.
I think so, but it's harder in some aspects for I guess a newer team. It's easier for individuals to showcase themselves to a certain extent because you have online stuff, but it's harder for a team to kind of come up as that full five that's going to go from, start from the bottom and go to the top.
All right. Well, we have another question so shoot away, Mr. Producer Reese.
What are some things from back in the day that you really don't miss?
From back in the day.
Oh, that I don't miss. I can think of a few, but
I
I'll
can think of loads.
You can
well, the thing is, like, the fact that all the technology was terrible, just for everything.
Yeah.
Technology sucked for everything.
Routing was not a thing.
One thing that I do miss is the IRC, but that's not the question.
Well, it's from the old days, right?
Yeah. No, but
it was an integral part of CS.
It's what you don't miss.
Oh,
so that's the question. So, but I do miss RC. But yeah. So what don't I miss? Well, the technology was just generally worse. So I don't miss the fact that when I was playing Euro Cups, I don't miss the fact that you'd have to wait 5 hours for a server search, because that happened just notoriously for Euro Cups, always for Euro Cups, because the thing is, right, you get admins who wouldn't really be all that authoritative, they'd be fans of the players, and you get this situation where they just don't take decisions, and then you got like 8 guys in a, or however many in a chat channel from either team, just like arguing over which servers, and then people starting to download to like fake their pings, and then like it would be ridiculous. It would be. I'd say 5 hours. You might think that that's crazy, but that was normal. That would happen all the time, and I do not miss that. So now your turn.
For me, things I don't miss, smokes from previous iterations. Basically, because they were non-existent.
The original source smokes, where it's like you throw the smoke,
and it takes like 9 minutes to bloom.
Yeah.
But to be fair, they were actually better than the 1.6 smokes, because 1.6 smokes actually didn't do a damn thing. Because if you only tilted your aim towards the ground and you looked at the top of your monitor, you could look through the smokes.
There are people who had like second monitor that would like be tilted, and so they could just see.
They would actually do it for events. Yeah. And you also had obviously cheating is still an issue in CS:GO, but it was more widespread, at least in because obviously we didn't have matchmaking in 1.6.
I don't miss OGC. I don't miss OGC.
Yeah, you don't miss OGC, you don't miss meta cheat, you don't miss smoke sprites, like smoke puff sprites, which basically would remove your smoke entirely. I do not miss the general dodginess, and I don't miss to an extent the amount of config changes you can make.
Oh yeah,
because you could actually like mess up 1.6 so badly that you could actually get back to like previous iterations of CS, like 1.3, etc., where you could like diffuse and shoot at the same time. You could do that in 1.6 with enough alias commands and all that jazz in console. There was no restrictions to it. That was the horrifying part.
Yeah.
So I've up through the years I've played with and against players who have had way too many dodgy commands in their config, to the point where it is cheating. But you can't stop it. So yeah, definitely don't miss that. Bad servers. I guess that's under the technology part as well. So yeah.
I don't miss puberty. Don't miss puberty.
Puberty was pretty rough.
Getting bullied by people who think they're superior human beings. I'm on TV now. Look at me now. I showed the bullies.
Certainly did.
I showed the bullies.
Yeah, no, that's definitely things I don't miss. I know there's more, but I think it'd be kind of obscure to people who haven't played really old versions of CS, like scopes on rifles, being able to jump and shoot with ops. Well, I guess we have that with Scout now, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's actually quite a few things I do miss, though. I'd say.
That's not the question, though. So.
Yeah, I know. So
you're not allowed to go there.
Yeah.
No, I won't let you. Any more, Reese? Any more questions, or shall we?
Vendetta, what is your history as a player?
What my history as a player?
Oh my God, this is a question, isn't it? All right, let's. I'm gonna give you.
How much time do I have?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you 2 minutes max to answer this.
2 minutes? Okay.
Reese is gonna start the clock now.
First time I started. Okay, I can just go from the start. First time I ever tried CS was at a player called Element's house. And for those who know who...
Noah Elements?
Yeah, NOA Element, because he's actually part of my extended family. So that's the first time. I had no idea who he was when I tried CS, because we were playing Heroes 3 or Heroes 2 at the time. And he was like, yeah, this is what I like to play. I was like, sure, whatever. So started way back when, downloaded CS illegally, obviously.
You could have said that in a way where you imply that. You don't have to explicitly say, I'm breaking the law, but continue.
But yeah, downloaded CS, created my own server, didn't understand that I actually needed to be connected to the internet for other people to join. So I sat on Aztec for about 2 hours. Nobody joined my server, but I had a jolly good time just jumping around on that. So that's how I kind of started. Eventually, I had a couple of friends who started playing as well. We went to LAN Cafe. Played there, started playing 1.6, started playing with in teams pretty much right away after dominating public servers, obviously, because that's what you do the first time, trying to get to the top rank of the public server. Played for quite a while, played up to late 2007 in 1.6, but ended up.
Oh, your time's up.
2 minutes already.
I knew you're gonna completely just blow this.
Yeah, it's
I was like,
no,
this is not happening.
Okay. Really short. Played 1.6. Got around to like a top 10 team. Played on top 10 team at the end of my time in 1.6, and swapped over to Source because of the shutting community that we talked about. It was really hard to get through it and into like the real elite. So hopped over to Source, loved the community there and the players there, and played that until CSGO came out. And through that time, played in the best teams in Norway, played for the national team, and did that partly in CSGO as well, but haven't been active since about 2013.
I have a quick point before going to another question. So there's one funny thing. When I was young and I first got Counter-Strike, because I didn't get it illegally, but I may have obtained it through proxy. There was
So covert of you.
So my experience getting it would have been actually 1.3 or 1.1 actually, or 1.1, 1.3.
Probably
like
1.3, I would assume.
One of those two, and I got it through. My friend was landing. My brother was landing with a friend, and I was on the network, and I leached a bunch of stuff from their hard disks. And one thing was Counter-Strike, and I'm sure he would have paid for it and everything, even though you wouldn't have paid for it back then.
Obviously.
Actually, back then it wasn't even illegal because you wouldn't pay for it. It's just a mod of Half-Life.
Yeah,
so
actually, yeah, you would just have CD key generators.
Anyway, it's anyway. So I go in. I'm playing. I'm on Italy, and well, all the hostages were naked women. There were boobs everywhere. And I was playing in the hallway, and so I got it's a bit awkward. My mum didn't approve of that, so she wouldn't have.
Okay, yeah.
So every time there's like hostages on the screen, I just have to look away, and it's like. It's awkward. It's pretty awkward. But that guy was obviously a massive pervert because I didn't install those. But when I got the folder,
sure you did.
So that was weird. Anyway, what's the last question, Mr. Reese? Love me some nudity though.
What would you change in the current meta of CS?
That's a really weird question. Because the meta.
Repeat that.
The question was, what would you change in the current meta of CS?
Oh, current meta.
The thing is, that's kind of a weird question because the meta
you're gonna have
develops
to go into
based on
balance.
what is happening right now, and so you either talk about balance or what you think people should be doing, and what they're not doing right now. And for me, it's anti-ecos and using more grenades and molotovs, because what would then happen is, and that would shift the meta game because it would change how the CTs or the Ts would actually have to play their economic decisions. Yeah, because you should do it less then, because teams are better at actually playing against it, meaning that you get more edges by saving your economy and pushing it forwards to future rounds. Yeah, so that's what I would change.
Yeah, and I would echo that. But and if I guess I would see anything else change, it would have to be off the back of balance changes, because I don't really enjoy right now the current meta in terms of how a lot of teams play and how effective it can be, because I have a picture in my head of how you play CS the right way.
So you're saying pistols are too strong, because that's the major difference basically. You have too many edges for
pistols are way too strong, just absolutely ridiculous.
So you see the pistols will be weakened in some way.
I think you should just have a massive nerf bat and go ham on those pistols, just all of them pretty much. I think the Glock and USP and P2000 are okay as is. I think the Deagle is in a pretty good spot. Everything else should just be beaten to the ground. Just
mercilessly
violated.
Grounded.
Just set them on fire.
All right.
Pretty much.
Fair enough. Bit of a purist response, but I respect your standpoint.
I've yet to hear a good reasoning for why they should be as strong as they are.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can make arguments, but that would be a. Okay, I could easily play devil's advocate here, but it's time to go into another game. Okay. So let's jump into the next game. But first, of course, the giveaway, the Eagle Blaze. Can't forget about that actually. So who is the victor, Mr. Producer Reese?
The winner of the Eagle Blaze is Johnny One Lung.
Johnny One Lung. Oh well, sorry about the one lung. But
now you've got a Eagle Blaze.
But now you got a Eagle Blaze.
Kind of makes up for it.
Yeah.
All right. Just don't blaze.
Maybe
because you have one lung.
You could sell it. Could go into the you could maybe get a lung off the black market.
Yeah, that's true.
I never tried that though.
Because the blaze does sell for quite a bit, doesn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. New lung on the way.
I wouldn't recommend the black market though. I have never tried it myself, so I don't know if it's actually.
I'm surprised you haven't with all this back alley doctor.
Exactly. Yeah. The back alley doctor thing.
Yeah, I would have assumed you had some experience coming up with that name just on the spot.
Yeah, that's true actually. Yeah. Well, guys, it's time for the game. So let's load up the second FPL match and see who we've got kicking things off here. Okay, so we're just jumping in. Take a few moments. So yeah, I don't know the back alley doctor thing. I don't know. I wouldn't try that. If I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't go to. How do you even find the black market for?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know.
It's not like it's announced. You just turn a corner, there's a back alley, and there's like
it's like signs and stuff. There's not signs.
An arrow, just like black market this way.
And I've never come across. Well, I guess they would be quite well hidden because I would imagine it's fairly illegal.
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously it obviously
fairly
is.
illegal.
So I think that's safe to say. So I don't understand how you get as a normal person. How do you get into contact with it? It's not like surely it can't be you Google lung black market and it's like call this dodgy number. That would be way too easy to find, right?
I wonder if no. I guess Google can't filter out anything or censor. Google does not censor stuff, just generally speaking. But is there any level of that?
You can have safe searches, but I guess that's more related to other things.
Interesting.
Not black market. But then again, I wouldn't know because I haven't really tried to find a black market. But
yeah, no. Well, I mean, I'm aware that of course there are. Never mind. I think this is a dodgy topic as well. But I'm gonna implicate myself in ways which I'll never be able to take back. So we'll
continue that off stream.
Yeah, we'll swiftly move away from that. Yeah. But yeah, when it comes to the major, as you know, because last week we talked about this with James, and he's not here. He's in Italy, enjoying all the good things in Italy. I saw a picture of him eating a piadina earlier. Piadinas are very nice. If you get them from a good place, they're very nice.
Yeah. We have bread.
Oh, you have bread.
Well, yeah. Well, if you want, you can have one of my baguettes.
It's not even got anything inside of it.
No,
it's just a baguette. It's not even an actual baguette. It's like a mini baguette. It's not even.
It doesn't actually have a proper name, does it?
It's just a baguette. So
it does have butter that follows. I actually didn't know, but it has butter.
That's a bonus. Nice.
Want one?
You're not gonna smash it on the desk, are you?
No. You wouldn't even get the right effect because this is so small.
After Obama got smashed into smithereens.
Careful about things.
We're a bit sensitive in here now with breaking stuff. So
even if it's bread.
Even if it's bread. Well, like Obama, the baguette is a cultural symbol. You know, you gotta respect that. You can't be like Thorin. Thorin's just smashing
baguettes.
He will smash all things.
Yeah. Well, here we go. It's new game load up. And for those of you wondering, Neverwinter is Schneider, who recently played for Hellraisers. I think that was yesterday we saw him stand in for Hellraisers, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's going to be a fairly mixed lineup. That's also one of the cool things. A lot of players who normally wouldn't play with each other get the chance to poke around and have fun with each other. So again, we're seeing Taz. He's playing with Rubino from Copenhagen Wolves, or what used to be Copenhagen Wolves, Hooch, Minis, and Benji. And on the other side, we have Raul and Mystic, Adren, Mo, and Schneider. I'm actually curious to see what's going to happen to Mo and Adren in the future, as to what team are they going to end up in. I'm assuming they're going to be playing with Doja, but who knows?
Schneider. So what side do you think is really favoured here? Because it does look like the T side, Benji's team, is pretty sick.
So here, Schneider's really good. Like his skill set benefit, like is really good in the pug environment. Same thing with Mystic. Mystic's just like a pug god. Same thing goes for Benji though. This is the thing, when you're talking about who do you think is going to be good in these type of games, it's not going to be, or oftentimes it's not going to be the guys, the usual suspects. Because if you look at the teams these guys play, and you would go with like, well, Taz plays in the best team, which is probably the best player, that type of thing, or is one of the best players. That doesn't necessarily mean that Taz is going to be extremely successful in a pug style environment like this. So I would imagine Mystic to do well here. Mo Schneider. So I think those two are going to be important for the CT side. On the T end, I think Benji, Rubino, and Minis probably going to be the three for them to drive this home.
So when it comes to Mo, because obviously Mo had his ups and downs with with Hellraisers, and like when he's on form, it looks like he looks like he's essentially like one of the top AWPers in the world, like top 4 AWPer or something. He can look that good when he's playing, when he's hitting his shots. And like, what do you think is the deal with Mo? Is he just got a consistency problem, or is it issues with ping? Is it issues with role and team?
Well, I think anyone could have an issue with the role in their team when you're playing for Hellraisers, because God knows what they're doing at any given time. So that could obviously be an issue. You'd probably like to have, depending on what kind of operator you are, obviously. If you're JW, you don't need structure around you necessarily to be effective. But for a lot of other operators, it's nice to know where you have your teammates at any given time, you know, where you can fall back to, where you can safely take re-engagements and that type of thing. And but most of all, I think it's more a case of being inconsistent, and that comes down to not having played at this level for too long of a time. And it's something to become really consistent is super hard. That's probably what's going to make you one of the best players in the world.
I actually I made an analogy once. I was going to make a video entitled this, but I forgot to do it. like a lot of the content, I got a massive list of stuff I want to make videos on, but it's it's something like the snow leopard of competitive play consistency, because the snow leopard is like this it's like this Buddhist I think there's a book called the snow leopard, but it's like this Buddhist thing where like it's just the thing you're always chasing that maybe exists, maybe it doesn't. You're always chasing it. It's almost like chasing perfection, like a moving target, like a sort of thing. It's something that's always in the crosshairs, but you never know quite how to achieve it. There is a lot of ways to achieve it, but it's a very complex question that if you've ever been a competitive player, this is the one thing, like the golden thing that you're searching for. Because if you can always have consistent performances, then you've got security. Like there's nothing to worry about.
You automatically become one of the best players in the world. Yeah, I think simply based on the fact that you're so reliable. It's really that easy. If people know that you're gonna do your job every single time, then that's going to be a massive attribute to any team.
And you can see, Device is one of these players recently. The reason why he's been given the title by Thorin, and Thorin extrapolated this from statistically, it's just statistics, his results. Like he's been consistently performing. He's always getting the big performances for his team, always, every single match. And so off the back of that, you can't help but say this guy is the best player for TSM, who arguably at the moment are the best team in the world. So boom, that gives you the title, best player in the world. So definitely a big deal. Guardian as well is one of the guys for Na'Vi. That's one of the reasons why he is so good, is because he's so damn consistent. Whereas if you look at the player, for example, I would say like Michael, I think Michael has got a really high skill ceiling, but his consistency
is wildly up and down.
It's wildly up and down, and that's the big issue.
A player like Seized as well. You see him having periods where he doesn't get more than 5 frags in a game, then 2 games later he's going to drop 30, then it's back to 5. There's no real, there's not a solid average that you can base him off, and you can't solely rely on him being the guy to always be there for your team. And that's really what most players are searching for when it comes to this. It's not necessarily improving your aim or getting better at opping, what have you. It's more, it's like you said, the Snow Leopard. The golden trophy here is finding consistency, finding a position or a play style that allows you to do the best at any given time. And I think that's why you have players like Crims being so special, because Crims have kind of found that recipe for himself, or that formula that allows him to be extremely good at any given situation and always deliver.
It's like it's so much everything. Like the consistency thing is like everything, because you gotta. It's so much your own psychology, as well as it is like understanding all the variables of your play and like finding a way for everything to work together to just deliver results all the time. And it's such a complex thing in that sense, because there's so many variables that you have to work out, and sometimes you'll be sacrificing on some things in favor of having the consistency. Like again, like the Crims example, you won't see Crims necessarily going and doing insane things all the time like you would see JW. But unlike JW, Crims is going to have a really good average, and that's so sick to have. You want that. You definitely need that. And I think for example, a lot of it comes down to how your process is of making decisions in the game, and how you decide to take certain engagements. How do you decide to peak certain times? What positions do you put yourself into? Do you have like a framework of understanding so you can make decisions consistently? Because if you can make decisions consistently, then your problem is is the execution consistently, and that's actually the hardest part. Is actually the consistent execution. So how do you get consistent execution? It's like it's inherently an inconsistent idea is execution, because human beings, that's how we are. We're not always going to perform.
We do make mistakes
all the time, and it's always going to be the issue in every single sport. That's like you were talking to me yesterday. Was it on stream? I'm not sure if it was on stream or off stream. We were talking about Kobe Bryant, and how the guy is basically psychopathic to the degree of his dedication with basketball.
Yeah, it really is.
So I mean, from the execution perspective, that's something I've always been thinking about, and it comes down to mechanics. If you're a very sound mechanical player, that means that you have a lot of structure behind how you use your mouse and how you use technique in certain situations. That's easily replicable all the time. So you create a consistent framework. Yeah. It's really complicated. I mean, I'm sure every pro player is going to have a slightly different answer and so on and so forth. But it's fascinating.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And you can tell that there's a reason why it's such a wanted commodity, right? Because it's so complex, because of what it can give you, and because of how hard it is to obtain.
And one of the most incredibly difficult things when it comes to competitive gaming, and I think it depends which game it is. Some games are more so like this than others. Is the idea of the conscious brain versus the subconscious brain, because when you're making crazy fast shots and doing crazy shots like we saw Hiko, the shot that we were passing the other day, making the front page of Reddit, that kind of a flick, that's completely his subconscious. That's thousands of hours of training. His brain just does something. You don't consciously think this. Whereas you do have to consciously think at the same time as playing. You have to think about certain things. You have to communicate. You're bridging the conscious and the subconscious mind constantly. You want the execution to come from the subconscious mind, and the rehearsal, all that to go into subconscious mind, and that to perform. And then you need the conscious mind to do a bunch of other tasks at the same time. And that duality is very hard.
It's extremely hard.
It's very interesting. That's why games like StarCraft are so interesting, and Quake and CS. These games really epitomize this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of why it's so cool. With that shot, for instance, like Hiko does, when you do that yourself, it's kind of fun how you can be surprised by how
you're an observer. You're watching yourself do this stuff. You're like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah. What the hell did I just do? Because your brain has just worked before you actually. You work ahead of yourself. In that sense, it's predetermined in your mind that's you're going to react in a certain way before yourself actually realize it. It's really cool.
So much conditioning. But there was a time that's I don't know if this is like a thing anywhere else, but it's just a time I used to explain some of this stuff. It's like learned intuition, because basically that's something that's intuitive to Hiko's brain, but it's based on thousands of hours of conditioning and from practice, basically repetition, conditioning, just cultivating a certain way response to certain stimulus, and that's what the practice hours are there to do. So it's something fantastic. That's why you got to sink a lot of hours into this kind of stuff. Just like music, you're a musical person. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. And I guess if I want to go back on. Go back to the topic of the game, and Mo, which is kind of what started all of this.
We're doing this again, aren't we?
Yeah. No, but if we could have a couple of rounds where we just check out what Mo's doing, because then you can see what kind of an opera he actually is, and why a lot of us feel like he's a super good player. But then you can see we might be able to see the inconsistencies in his play, like whether or not he's able to hit those easy peaks and whatnot, because he definitely has the.
So here is a spot where he could decide to go to white box, or he could decide to play in this spot. I guess it's harder to read the economy in pugs, but if he's reading the economy, staying back like that makes a lot of sense. But he recommits there, so.
And there you can also see one of the issues just by being inconsistent. If that had been Guardian, that probably would have been 2 shots, 2 kills. And Mo has he has the reflexes, he has normally the precision to get those kills. But if you don't have that every single time, then you're going to be lacking to some extent.
And this is why it's so hard to generate this kind of consistency, because sometimes there will actually be a slight bottleneck in your setup and how you actually use your mouse and stuff. Like even for players that have played for years, like that can be a bottleneck that you might not know is there. And this is why experimenting with a lot of different setups is really important. because there are some movements you'll want to try to make, but you just can't quite make quite perfectly enough.
Yeah.
And there are some players you'll notice, like I think Shroud is one of them. Shroud is a good example, because if you watch Shroud use their rifle, he's able to switch like even 180 degrees, but still have like perfect precision because of the way that he's set up. He can make these big sweeping motions, and it still doesn't impact the integrity of his precision, and that means that his mechanics are really sick.
Yeah.
But there are some players that can't do that. Maybe the type of mousing that they do, they would benefit from acceleration, so they can make their faster turn, and they can use more wrist because you don't have as much
like carrying.
less space to sweep. Exactly like carrying. Yeah, it's a great example. Yeah, so these are like mechanical bottlenecks that you could possibly have, which could hurt your consistency.
Yeah, it's definitely something I think 99% of people don't actually think about.
Oh yeah. Even the top players.
Yeah, it's more of a thing that you've grown accustomed to something, so you don't really you learn to play around your weaker areas instead of trying to improve them. That type of thing.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough, I guess, in certain ways, because some people are very, very aware of the fact that instead of trying to become the best all-around player, they're just going to become extremely good at their role, and they can play that in a way where they don't necessarily have to be as mechanically strong.
Yeah.
As someone who wants to be basically the one who rules the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a mindset thing, isn't it? Because I'm someone that became just completely obsessed with every variable that I could understand exists. Basically, it's like, okay, what is like the most optimal setup for all of this stuff? Like that to me is not only fascinating, but I want to get the best results. So it's like really interesting to like try to understand everything. And some people don't need to do any of that, but I felt like I got improvements out of that. It would take time, but again, if I were to go back playing now, I understand so many of the habits that I had, which were poor previously, because I was a different player. I was a guy that was just about relying on mechanics, and my decision making was terrible on everything. Exactly, yeah. So you evolve over time as a player, especially if you're as obsessive as I am about this stuff.
Weirdly enough, it's strange how that's a kind of a common and recurring theme amongst young players. Obviously, decision making. As you mature, you make better decisions just in life in general. Yeah, exactly. It would be kind of cool to see a 13-year-old who had on-point decision making and was terrible mechanically, because I obviously nothing against mechanical players, but I think it's easier to train yourself to be good at the mechanical stuff than it is to be at the decision making.
It's much easier,
it's quicker to a certain extent, or to a certain level.
I think human beings are generally always looking for just the results within their framework of understanding. Yeah. Because that's, you're operating within what you know there. Because it's really hard to get outside of what you know. Because you're like, where do I even look? Where do I start?
But yeah, and you're lost. It's such a wide range and wide area to explore. So you get lost. Yeah, you get lost really. And
like, how do you know what exercise does something? You could be doing something that's effective, but you don't know. You don't have the experience and so on. Yeah. And but at least if you play loads of hours, you're like, I'm better at killing people now. Yeah. That's pretty simple.
That's a very nice and easy way of explaining it.
It's a fascinating thing. Everyone has to start out there, but to be honest as well, I think it's the best way to start, because you need to get the hours in. You really do. Yeah. And if you can't actually outfight someone, if you can't at least fight on par with somebody, your decision making is not going to matter. At the end of the day, you have to shoot people. You have to be able to kill people.
Yeah. But in some scenarios, you can have good enough decision making to the point where it allows you to get, let's say, 5 more bullets in, and that's going to be the difference. So, but obviously, you have to have a mechanical skill at a certain level for it to even matter. Because if you can't press mouse 1, then what's the point?
It's always a sad thing though, because I've seen a lot of teams that they might have good understanding of strategy or some good decision making, might even be a lot better than, let's say, like a kind of puggy kind of team. But then you have this team. For example, like this is how Semphis' teams have been in the recent past, where they got a lot of skill in the team, and they'll just completely just waste these opponents who might be making good decisions, but they just can't keep up with the shots. So even though Semphis' team is having loads of engagements that are really unfavorable, their skill is so much in advantage of theirs that the gap is just too big to overcome. So it doesn't matter that you gain edges in strategy if you lose too many edges in individual skill. Yeah. So it's a fine balance to strike, but yeah, it's. Do you feel there's any teams like this at the moment that, if they had a boost in individual skill on the pro level scene, would just suddenly like break out into the top 4, top 5? Is there a team that's doing stuff right? Because you could,
So basically, you're asking for a really solid tactical team that just needs that extra boost.
Exactly. Yeah.
I guess I still think they have the skill, but they don't show it consistently enough. So I guess the easy answer is Titan.
Titan, okay. But the team with sharks and
yeah, exactly. That's why it feels so silly to say that, but they don't consistently show that enough.
Yeah.
Because you have games where Sharks is anonymous, and you have games where Scream can't hit a single thing, and
the consistency, man, the Snow Leopard.
Yeah, and I guess otherwise, the old Hellraisers lineups, because I could never really understand what they were doing. Well, that was on a strategical level.
Yeah, that was like the opposite, wasn't it?
Yeah, like it would have been like they needed all the strategy in the world because they had the firepower. And I think you're going to find more teams that actually have the firepower more than the tactical side to it.
Yep, I agree.
So I'm kind of slowing down on potential teams.
Because the only one I could think of previously would have been like the E-Frag or the G-Play, basically. Because they were kind of like that. They had really cool strategies and stuff. But the individual skill will hurt them against Envious or something.
No, they also have a great individual skill. The problem for them is that after people started to take them seriously to an extent, and they actually realized that these guys, they can hit well, and they can dome your head, and they have pretty sick strats. They started looking into their strats, and EFRAG didn't revamp their strats, so it ended up them just having to rely on individual skill at that point. But I still think what made them win was their strategies, but like it wouldn't help them now to get more firepower if they still do the same strategies, because everyone's going to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's always going to be a balance between the two, as you said. You can't be successful with only one thing, but you will get further initially with only having solid mechanics and sick aim. Yeah,
strategy is is classically underdeveloped until you get to that like super top tier and you get that lineup. So it does make a lot of sense where you can't find one really, because I don't think there is.
I think Titan is the closest thing you can get to it, and even that doesn't feel quite right.
Scream and Sharks and
yeah, exactly.
RPK.
You got RPK as like the best CSS player ever. So yeah, it doesn't fully make sense, but
yeah,
you can imagine if they had, I don't know, someone who performed like Happy all the time, then, or at least got the same amount of frags. And if everybody did that, that would be great.
Yeah.
How would you beat Titan if that was the case?
Oh yeah. So what do you think? What are your thoughts on Adren then? Because Adren is
Adren is one of my favorite players, and I've been saying this for years.
All right. Okay. Just tell people of your passion for Adren.
One of the.
Why should they be a fan?
Why they should be a fan is because, we talked about we had such a rough time when we were young. We had to play with 80 FPS and 80 ping. Adren came second at WCG with Kazakhstan at the K23 team. After playing. He practiced for the event versus bots.
For like, 6 months or something? Or
for ages. Because in Kazakhstan, they didn't have the ping to play proper versus proper opponents. So they practiced versus bots, come to WCG, wreck face, lose to 3D in the finals, but still, who would have ever thought that Kazakhstan would end up second?
Just like the playing versus bots thing, that's the unbelievable thing. Because there was actually, this happened with one player in Quake as well for a small time frame called Zamus. He was he's from Sweden, but somehow didn't have internet for 8 months or 10 months.
He's the one Swede?
Yeah.
The exiled Swede.
And he played against bots for 8 months, and he comes out of his hidey hole for a LAN and just wrecks everybody, and everyone's like, what?
Yeah, who is this guy? What the hell happened?
And it's actually quite funny how that works, but of course, yeah. But beyond that kind of origin story of Adren there, what is it about his play, his roles, his skill sets that make you a fan of him?
For me, it's the fact that he's a super just solid player, and I think he's one of the players who has usually a very good intuition of a very good game sense. You understand what's going on around him most of the time. Even in Hellraisers, it looked like he was in control of what was going on around him, which I find impressive. And he's got really solid aim, which is kind of, I guess, underestimated by a lot of people, because people oftentimes look at stats. They don't actually look at how the plays within a game evolves. But he makes safe decisions. He plays smart. I guess that's his most redeeming quality, and that's a big plus when I look at players that I like to see play. And he plays for a team. he's not really that concerned about be the guy with 30 frags. If he has to run up first, he's going to do it. He has to basically take a hit for the team. He's going to do that in any situation. So he's just a super valuable team player, and that's why I like watching him play. And
so kind of a guy that can do it all, and he's
mostly except for opping, pretty much.
And so.
Yeah, because in my head, and I've said this several times, for me it should always be about the strategical and team play part of CS that's going to make you the best team in the world. Like, in a perfect edition of CS, that would be what will be the most effective way of playing, to me. And Adren would be a perfect player in that kind of a world if he had a team that a proper team that just played for each other. So I was quite sad actually to see him leave Hellraisers. I'm really happy about the fact that they won APM. That was super fun. But yeah, hopefully they can get something good out of this this breakaway, I guess, from Hellraisers now that they're making a new team. But he's always been super solid, and he's been around forever. He's a super nice guy as well. And he was actually one of the first guys from 1.6 I played with in CS:GO. Like, just casually mixing with. So I guess slight bias there, but yeah, no, he's just a super good overall player.
So what about Hooch as well? Because Hooch is a guy, obviously, he is Russian, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think he commentates, right, for. He does some commentary, because he's doing commentary in Kiev?
I'm not sure if Hooch actually does the commentary, but he's always around at StarLadder.
Yeah. But
I'm not sure if that's just because he likes hanging out.
Yeah.
But that could very well be, because Hooch is a super sociable guy. He's really friendly, really nice. And he's also one of those guys who's been around forever, playing in Virtus.pro back in like 2005.
How do you feel about him as a player? Is he...
Well, right now he hasn't been as active as you probably would have expected.
So is
from
he just
player
pugging right now? Or?
Yeah, he's more of a player who's always around, who can stand in for whatever team. Because obviously he knows everybody in the CIS scene. So if somebody times out because their internet goes down, or they're stuck in traffic, or stuck at an airport somewhere because their flight got cancelled, you can always ask Hooch.
Gotcha.
And he's also the kind of player who, I mean, he's still a CIS player, so he does have his YOLO moments, but he's one of the more, I guess, tempered players in or chill Russian players in that sense. That he plays a bit more laid back. He doesn't always run up into your face. Okay,
so considering Rubino, he's a Norwegian.
That's true. So he is from Trondheim. So they do speak funny, but yeah, he's still Norwegian.
So what's the deal with Rubino then? Tell me some stuff about Rubino. If people watching who don't know anything about him, as a player, as a person.
Well, as a person, not the false guy.
And also his prospects. Player, person, and prospects.
The 3 Ps.
Yeah, man.
Well, no, as a player, he's kind of done a bit of everything in the last couple of iterations of teams he's been in. Has gone everything from being a lurker to entry fragger to being the guy running around with smokes, basically, because a lot of his teammates in different teams, like Copenhagen Wolves, like LGB, they actually didn't know how to throw proper smokes, so Rubino got stuck with that. But he's like one of the hardest working people I know. He puts in so much time into the game because he just wants to become better.
So when you say puts in time, like is he watching a lot of demos? Is he rallying his team a lot? Is he spending just most of the time on deathmatch?
He tries to rally his team a lot. He doesn't play deathmatch, but he plays bot DM, pretty much, and he does that for hours and hours.
Yeah, I way prefer that as well, generally speaking.
And he's the kind of guy who runs around on his own server finding 19 new smokes on a map that you're probably never going to use, but and his mindset is that it can never hurt to know more and have more opportunities and potential options in certain scenarios, because so many different things can happen in a game CS that if you're prepared for every possible scenario, you're going to be better off than if you weren't.
It is Rubino, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or Rubino.
Is it Rubino?
Yeah.
So it should be Rubino, because for some reason I've been saying Rubino. I don't know why.
Well, his name is Ruben. That's
so I guess that kind of makes
Rubino,
a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Should I stick with Rubino? I guess I could.
I think it's more of a thing that it's either if you have a British accent, that would be the way you pronounce it. It's really just I don't think he's gonna mind anyway. I guess if you make the O into A or something and start changing out the letters, then he might start getting annoyed. But other than that, no, I don't think he.
It's
really
Rubino.
It's Rubino.
So okay, so when it comes to like matches and so on, just aside from any the grenades and so on, managing utility, what kind of roles is he good at? What kind of a player is he when he's in the match?
I think it's very versatile. The only thing, and as of late in Kapadia and James, he even started picking up the op as well, in addition to twist whenever they would let a double op setup. And he was surprisingly good with it, because even when we played gathers and pickup games and whatnot, he wouldn't pick up the op necessarily that much. And I was actually surprised to see that he was the second guy in line after twist. But he's been doing a pretty good job with that as well. So his biggest strength is his versatility, and I think his individual performance has risen quite heavily while he was in Kapadia and James. In LGB, he took kind of a back seat. And he was actually pretty disappointed with how he played during a stint in LGB. So he actually really took that to heart.
So you say he's versatile, but when you have a player that's let's say Rubino is a jack of all trades, master of none kind of situation.
I think that's fair.
How are you using him? Like, let's say even in this current lineup, because how do you use a player like that the most effectively? Because I know it's kind of like might sound like a stupid question because he's there to fill gaps and so on, but is there something specific that he's been doing in these teams?
No, that's the thing. He's kind of been swapping around with roles, and in LGB he definitely wasn't an hopper.
Because that's got to be sometimes quite kind of frustrating to try to be the master of nothing, basically a jack of all trades.
Yeah, you're the guy filling the gaps everywhere.
Because you're never gonna. It's hard to have the star performance unless, of course, you're to the level of that. Like, let's say Olofmeister, because Olofmeister is good at everything. Like Shock is good at everything. Forest is good at everything. That kind of stuff.
But that's the thing, that in the case of Rubino, he's kind of, well, yeah, in that sense, he's a poor man's version of those.
The poor man's Olofmeister.
Yeah, well, and people are probably going to take that in the wrong context, but he's a versatile player who can use any sort of weapon, but as of right now, without really being in a stable enough team to specialize in one role, he's always going to be slightly above average with everything.
So do you feel like his fate is at the mercy of the team situations he's been put into?
Yeah.
Like would you prefer to see him like leave the team, move somewhere else?
Well, the team doesn't exist anymore, so that kind of happened for them.
Okay, that's good for him then, I guess.
In a sense, but it also sucks that you've put in a lot of work to make a new team happen. You're starting to get results. They obviously bombed out and played the worst TS they've played in months at the qualifiers. Yeah, they were pretty bummed out about that. But
I casted those games, so I remember them.
It was pretty hard. And I'd even sat through practices with them and seen how they wrecked other teams and just played very differently from what they did at the qualifiers. They said it themselves. They were super disappointed with what they managed to perform.
So who are the star prospects of Norway then?
It depends on if you're thinking about who's going to become the most popular players. Then best player who is not already the best, because I don't see anyone overtaking Rain's position in quite some time. Because I think Rain's going to be one of the best players in the world.
Okay, so who has as good or slightly worse prospects than Rain, second in line to the throne?
Depending on how quick Jacob is to learn how to play CS properly, kind of the same way Rain had to. If he's quick about it, then he can get up to the level, because Jacob has better aim than Rain. He's a better aimer, but he's not as smart, and he's not as versatile. He's not as good in various situations as Rain is as of right now. But then again, he's had less time at that level to learn. Jacob is definitely a top prospect. Rubino can also be that if he finds a stable team where he can do one thing for an extended period of time and become a master of one of these trades, and instead of just being kind of a all-purpose kind of guy. And eventually he can fill in those spots as well. But he needs time to master at least one of these aspects of the game before he can get to that point. Mystic is obviously a big name that people get excited about, simply because he is one of those sick pug players who's got really good games. Kind of similar story to Jacob, how he started out. The problem with Mystic is that he has a way harder time actually playing within the team than the other guys had. And he even says that himself. He's actually pretty heavy on criticism or critique of his own. Like, he's really hard on himself in that sense, and even during the World Championships, he was constantly talking about, like, well, this is on land, so I'm probably going to be ass. Like, it's not going to go well for me,
yeah,
that type of thing. And it's said kind of jokingly, but he says it enough to the point where you kind of start to believe that he actually means it to a certain extent.
Yeah, you got to be really careful with that sort of stuff.
And he gets tilted fairly quickly, so he can start off playing really well, getting a lot of frags in the pistol, doing well into ecos, building up a couple of frags. But if it stops for 2 rounds after that, he really gets into his own head. So that's his biggest weakness, that and not being able to really play with teammates.
Yeah, getting into your head, like the whole like mindset psychology stuff is like really fascinating to me.
Otherwise, Paint, who's not really a new name, I guess he's an old school player, but
people don't know about him in CSGO.
People in CSGO wouldn't know about him. He played for Norway in the World Championship. He was an absolute monster in Source, but he just recently started playing CSGO like more and more, pretty actively. He's been pretty sparse with his playtime in CSGO up to this point. So it's been it's gonna be cool to see how he does if he actually continues on with it. They almost qualified for Fragment Masters. They got knocked out by Vex after throwing a 13-2 lead on Dust 2, which is a bit of a shame.
Whoa.
Yeah, that was impressive to watch in all the wrong for all the wrong reasons. But he can definitely be an exciting prospect to watch out for if he continues to play, and it's oftentimes the usual suspects.
Rubino's going to get pop flashed into main. What can he do with this?
Not much.
We're going to get another overtime. This
yeah, it kind of looks like that.
We're going to get another overtime here. Nice.
But there are a ton of good individual players in Norway, but it's how we make teams that are kind of messed up, because we are a lot of the teams are pretty much stacked up with people who are good individually but don't really have the team play part down. And that's obviously going to be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, there needs to be. The thing is, being an in-game leader is quite a difficult prospect when it comes to people that don't have much experience, because it's a very hard role to both look at everything that's happening at you know, and like take the macro and the micro and throw it in, like mishmash it together in the right balances to lead a team and those are players, as well as then playing your game as well, because you can't have lackluster individual performances. Like, people use it as an excuse, but it's not really an excuse. It just means that you're a worse in-game leader in some senses than others, because you need to be able to perform individually. And we're seeing that, you know, on the top level starting to happen more and more as teams are getting better and better. You know, Pronax is always Pronax has never been bad or in any sense. Like, he's a really good individual player.
Yeah, it really is. Same thing with the Existence.
Yeah.
If you let Existence loose and just a random, well, let's say FPL, not that the French guys are the most active guys on playing with people who aren't French, but still, if you would let Existence loose there, he would probably do really well.
Yeah.
Because they're still really good individual players.
That's what kind of encourages me now, is that he's doing better, and it's not because he's just playing a bit better. It's just he's giving himself the opportunity to actually play well by putting himself in more responsible roles from the fragging perspective, and not just shying away from the action and focalizing the team on 1 or 2 players, instead having a more
active role,
more centric kind of perspective, and just combining everyone together. Yeah, and this is cool to see, you know, smokes in pucks. We've got like a wall of smokes in the middle there from Team C3.
This is also something that you're gonna, obviously you're not gonna see that in matchmaking, because you're gonna be like, guys, let's do the double smokes in mid, and 4 other guys on our team are gonna be like, I don't know them. This is the benefit of having just all around good players on your team, because most of them, in most cases, they should know the most default smokes on every map. So you're able to set up, I guess, the framework for a solid execution, but obviously how you execute them is going to be the most interesting part with the pug.
Yeah, indeed. So when it comes to some of the Polish players, actually, because we've got Ralin and Minis here. Yeah. Right. So at TWC, of course, you know, Poland did a lot better than expected, because there's no Virtus.pro players there, which is of course a big deal. Hyper wasn't there for, you know, arguably the second best team, you know, Vexed. But you know, we've got players like Minis and Ralin. Like, the skill level in Poland is really sick. So and Minis, I think, has always been a pretty standout too. So have you got any cool insights about Maniz and Rollin to share?
Rollin actually made. Okay, this is calling him a bit out, but Rollin actually accused me of cheating.
Oh really?
Yeah, in 2013 when we beat them out of Fragment Masters.
Wow, holding a grudge.
Yeah, actually made a video as well. Yeah.
You made a video. Wow.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
Back in the good old day when you had videos of that stuff. So it's kind of funny to see him qualifying for majors and whatnot. Brings out the bitterness in me. But
nice.
no, obviously they've been around for quite some time. And it's a big sign. Whenever you speak to Taz at events, he's always talking about how many talents there are in Poland. He talks about Sparrow, Innocent, Maniz, Michu, you name it.
Michu's really good.
Yeah,
really
all
good.
of them are really good, and it's not like they've come out of nowhere either. They've just had a
Sparrow actually. He's actually a monster. Like I actually didn't know until Tito's. Yeah, I saw some.
And it's so weird because
stuff.
those it seems to be a Polish thing that they're really good at playing without ops. But but Spiro really started to shine when he picked up an op.
Yeah.
Even though it was very, very capable with the rifle, he really started to shine when he busted out that. So it's really fun to see. So he could be like the next big opper coming out from Poland.
It's really important as well, actually, that teams know how to play with that AWP, because it is so difficult. Like if you need an AWP to play your CT setups, like it's so fragile. It makes things even more fragile than they already are, which is already pretty bad in some spots. Because if you have a team that can play that AWP, they can play. They don't have to rush to an AWP when you can buy it straight away. Which makes life a little bit more consistent. You don't have to. You can actually force buy up, and you can play off the back of low nades. You can do like good low econ aggressions and setups because your team is kind of prepared to do that. And Virtus.pro was always one of those teams. In fact, they actually classically were a team that showed everybody a long time ago how to play Mirage and CT setups and still completely wreck everybody without playing on the AWP. And that's insane because the AWP is so damn good, and you get so many options on it, maybe more than any other map. And so because every single spawn you can do something crazy with the AWP on Mirage for Ts and for the CTs. So but they could play crazy CT hearts without it.
Yeah, and that's kind of what you expect from Polish teams. It's kind of their trademark, not using the AWP, but then you have Spiro kind of breaking the norm with it. So that's really cool. I'm actually really excited to see how the Polish teams are going to do at the major coming up.
Yeah, I'm really happy that Vex were able to get themselves in there. Now, which I think is are there any other players that we haven't really talked about that you know some stuff about that would be interesting for people to know about? Is there anything that we haven't talked about from a player perspective on the server right now that you think that would be interesting for the viewers?
Well, let's see. Who haven't we really spoken about yet?
Mystic, never went there. Benji.
Well, Mystic we've touched on. Benji is your classic pug player. Like he's been around the Swedish scene for a long time, and basically the group that he plays, which was his Tomáš, Berg, Kaboom, Robin, etc. Those guys, they've always been really good. Aimers really solid, and they've always had pretty decent teams that can mess with pretty good one teams, but they would always be there to mess up the tournament for someone else. But solid individual players, but I'm not sure how dedicated they are to being the very best. I don't know them that well. I've only played with them or played versus them quite a bit. But definitely good players.
So if you were able to give people, let's say they wanted to improve, they want to be pro gamers, they're aspiring players. They maybe don't even have. Maybe they have a team, maybe they don't. But they want to be a pro gamer. What's like the biggest tip that you can give them? It doesn't have to necessarily be like the most important thing because I'm putting you on the spot. But is there like something that's like super important that you think everybody needs to know that might not be so commonly talked about?
That's probably the bigger thing though, if not commonly known about. Because the biggest thing you can do to get better is simply play a lot. You're not going to become the best player in the world without.
Okay, you can't say play a lot. That's too ambiguous. Yeah, I can't have this.
Okay. One thing that people don't do enough of that they would learn an immense amount of is, again, this is something that you have to teach yourself, but it's watching demos.
Okay, so let's expand on this. Because let's
okay.
If how do you start watching demos?
How you start watching demos? Well, first off, you have to
find
the POV
demo.
Okay.
I knew that was coming. All right, smart guy.
Bot
Vinny. Yeah.
The thing is, you have to learn yourself to think in an analytical way when you watch yourself play, and you have to get a good frame of what you're looking for in terms of just. Obviously, you're gonna have some strengths and some weaknesses in your play. And you have to be able to differentiate between when you die, if that's a cause of one of your weaknesses or whether it's just something that happens. Because you can still be in a favorable position and just get lucked or...
So how do you decide what a favorable position is or isn't?
That should be pretty intuitive. But
it's not though if you don't know anything about the game, or if you have yet to, in your position it's intuitive.
Yeah,
you spent time figuring stuff out, but how do you get to the point where you understand that this should be intuitive?
To put it really simply,
give some examples.
any angle you can feel comfortable in. Because when you play, you can very easily feel if you're comfortable shooting at people in this area of the map or not. And that's probably the easiest way to go about it or start out with. If you are uncomfortable with that situation, you have two options. You can either avoid that position as much as possible, or you can decide to become good at it and master it, which is going to take way more time than just avoiding it. But if you want to go for that all-around ability, then that's probably the way you have to go about it.
So you think it's like specific povs, so you'd like to see them also watch povs of people that do roles similar to them, or?
Yeah, I think that's the best way to get your base in. Let's say if you can decide early on, because you're going to find that you enjoy some weapons better than others. A lot of people enjoy opping, even though they're not necessarily good at it, but it's just something they think is really fun. Some people love running around tapping with an AK. So if you can find POV demos of players with a similar playing style, and basically, you do monkey see, monkey do. Try to imitate what they're doing.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, fake it till you make it, and after that, when you start running into walls, that's when you have to apply that analytical thought process to your reviews of your own demos. Because initially you want to watch other people play, then you have to rewatch what you're doing to figure out first off, what's different between what the guy you're first looking at, the pro player, he was doing, and then what you were doing differently, or necessarily what was different in that situation and how you should have reacted accordingly. And you have to do that for hours and hours and hours. And a lot of players are going to find that extremely tedious and not going to bother to do it. And you can't to a certain extent pick up the same kind of experience by playing a lot, because that's how you get that intuition into you. But just being in certain situations, if you die from catwalk 7,000 times over the course of a year, you probably picked up certain things that are do's and don'ts, just by default.
This is the thing though, like, it's all about, like one thing that I learned, because one of the challenges I took upon myself a long time ago was like to get good at something really, really, really fast within a year, and so it's like pure decision making basically. That I realized like they're the value, like you can, and this should help inspire some hope into people that feel like, oh, how do I get into it now? How do I get good? Now I'm just starting now, this kind of stuff, because you can do it very, very quickly. It might take, a couple of years, but if you have a good approach when it comes to basically, as Hav was saying, like you do need to watch people, so like fake it till you make it, like watch good players, like what are they doing, try to understand what are they doing that's good, but you need to also review what you're doing. You have to be able to do this, and you need to have this process where I practice, let's say, this much on execution, so this much of mechanics training, because if you go into a game, it's like not efficient to train your mechanics by just playing and playing and playing, because you only get to shoot people like every so often. So, but when you're playing the bot DM or something, you're able to train mechanics. You can train the burst, you can train the flicking, you can train the tracking, you can train all types of mechanics, and so that's much more efficient. And you got that time when you do that. You got time every week where I'm going to spend. Can even be like 2 hours a week. Right, it can even be as little as that, like 2 or 3 hours a week where you spend time watching the demos and you write some stuff down and you go, this week I'm going to make sure that I correct like this thing. And that already is very simple and not that much effort and not that tedious, but already it's like a big difference, and that's going to help massively, like really to help you jump the gap quickly. Because a lot that you're already doing something, because we talked about yesterday, right? What was the quote you said? Hard work.
Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
There you go. And I'm guaranteeing you in esports, 99% of talent does not work hard. Nearly nearly as hard as the hard work is. It's pretty big difference. Mostly. It's getting more serious now, but generally speaking,
it's improving. Yeah.
We were talking about how like it's kind of endemic, isn't it? If you're a talented person that you're kind of you've been cultivated or conditioned not to. Everything feels easy.
Everything has come easy to you, so you don't really know what it takes to work hard.
And because this is so complex, there are going to be so many things that those people will miss, or so many bottlenecks they'll have in their play. So you can do a lot with hard work, and that's if you're really serious about it. If it's really like a dream for you, because a lot of people, I'm sure, have those dreams and aspirations.
Aspirations, absolutely.
I still have dreams and aspirations.
Well, yeah.
I dream.
Dan has a dream.
I have a dream. It was all a dream.
Again, we're back there.
We're back to Biggie. Let's go. I had to do that. All right.
I figured I wouldn't trigger you to continue.
Yeah, I feel like that's old now.
We'll come up with new rappers. We haven't even touched Tupac.
Yeah, that's the one I know the most as well. But like we didn't touch Nas either. We're going for the big names.
Yeah.
No Nas, no Tupac.
No Big Pun.
And then eventually we can get into the more obscure hip hop artists that most people haven't heard of.
That's how we roll.
But we know.
Yeah.
But we know.
Pepperidge Farm knows. Or Pepperidge Farm remembers. I actually kind of surprised that the T's are still in it because they lost minis for quite a few rounds, but that's when they started really doing well in overtime.
Oh, he's doing it, isn't he? He's doing it.
It's actually going to be double overtime?
I think Benji's going to do it, man. Look at all these nades. Look, he's got Tech 9. 11 life.
Oh, not anymore.
Not anymore.
It's actually going to be double overtime.
That was one of his spots as well. Like he spent a lot of time throwing nades there. I think he spotted the player. I think he spotted Mystic like being relatively close. You actually see this issue a lot where it's like, what is the likelihood that I'm going to lose an I'm going to lose out the opportunity for an engagement that could be good, or get jumps just by throwing this nade that is probably too close to even do anything anyway, because it's an improvised pop flash, for example. Like I see a lot of people die in these spots where it's like, I have nades, I must use them.
That's actually one of the things I'm worst at. That's one of my biggest weaknesses. The fact that one thing is I have that mindset that I need to get all my nades out because otherwise it's a waste. But also I'm extremely hesitant because you have that thought in the back of your head, but what if he pops up around the corner now?
Exactly, and
it also always burns you when you hesitate. Yeah. So just be really adamant about it. Just go full all in when you decide to throw it. Do it. Don't let your dreams be dreams.
Yeah, it's true though. Like it's one of those things where it's you gotta if you're ever gonna clutch, like the very definition of clutch, like the first place you start with is being like 100% committed to every single small decision you're making. So yeah, so you can never be halfway. If you ever have that hesitation, you're doing it wrong. Basically,
it's as cheesy as having confidence in yourself in every decision you decide to make. And since we mentioned Kobe earlier, he has the same mindset about being clutch, taking that last second shot in a game, because he always thinks he's gonna make it. Yeah. If he has any sort of doubt that he's not gonna make it, then that's gonna be a pretty bad mindset to go into a situation like that with. This is
actually, I mean, we were talking about this yesterday as well. Like the whole idea of belief in if you're gonna make it and stuff, and especially if you've done like Kobe, and you've done like the 7,000 jump shots every single day, like you're gonna be in this spot where, because like if you're committed to every spot, it's about like visualization. It's like you commit to this probability that this will happen, because multiple things can always happen, but you have to commit to one, because if you commit to one, then you can visualize it, and if you visualize it, then you get your brain in the present, kind of like you get into the zone of basically feeling what's happening now, so you jump into the subconscious, and then you're committed to that shot and your reactions will be faster. If you watch Hiko does this very well. I mean, of course Hiko's job is to be the clutch guy, but just watch Hiko, because Hiko will commit like 9,000% to every single small thing, and if you just watch everywhere he puts his crosshair, he's imagining a guy coming around the corner there, and sometimes you'll see this like Hiko will, without hesitation, he'll just like pre-fire somewhere, like he'll flick and pre-fire somewhere, because in his head the scenario has played out where he kills this guy, and the other guy is likely in this spot, and then that's the perfect timing for that guy to peek and engage him, or stuff like this basically. Like these small, that's like game sense stuff from experience, but that's the probability he's going to go with, and that's how you be the best clutch player you can be.
Yeah.
At least I think so anyway.
No, I completely agree. But I think we have a pretty similar mindset as to
everything.
Just how to play them. Yeah, pretty much. Just different accents. But yeah.
Well, you can you can do this accent as well, apparently. So maybe not. Oh dear.
Schneider deciding not to use scopes anymore. Actually had a pretty sick no scope as well on B in that clutch round they had. That retake round.
Oh
okay,
wow.
So
that's
not using scope with an op and jumping with pistols. What is this life?
That's full Superman. What's all these overtimes? This is
pretty cray-cray.
It's really fun though when you get to overtimes in pugs. Actually, it's really fun.
It's kind of weird that the second minis got back on the server, stuff started going really rough for the T side again.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. Well, we can. Okay, so looking at the stats, seems like everybody's contributing. Some more than others, but still, everybody's nearing that 30 frag territory. It's pretty nice to see.
One thing as well about, because I mean we seem to have focused a lot on the topics of like mindset, sports psychology, and various like issues like being good and consistency. Like I want to follow the trend here. I want to talk about how emotions can like impact, because I get a lot of questions actually on my YouTube channel, because on my YouTube channel I talk about this kind of stuff all the time, and like I have analysis series and all that kind of stuff. And one thing people often ask me about is like how to deal with getting angry, because they get angry and they tilt basically. And it's like a really, really big thing. And I used to be a massive rager, and I don't ever lose my cool anymore. And it's been like that for a long time, because I took a lot of steps to like find ways to fix that.
I think there's different ways of dealing with it. For some, having that outburst is a way of ventilating to the point where it actually helps them.
Yeah,
it helps them
right.
put whatever happened behind them, and they can refocus and continue on with the game.
Yeah,
that's definitely the case for some players. Others just get tilted and go on a downhill slope, and there's no turning back. Yeah, I've definitely been there, and still at certain times when I play, I just end up in a place where everything is hopeless, and you feel like there's no way out.
Because that's the thing. Like some people can externalize fully without limits that like emotion, and then boom, refocus, like you said. And then some people like me, I can only do like that to an extent, but there'll be some anger inside of me still. I'm internalizing it, and that's why that approach doesn't work for me. But I've seen players like that. Like a lot of the Russian players are really good. I've noticed just slamming the desk and then boom, they're fine again. It's like what?
Well, we've seen that with one player we saw in the previous game, Rattlesnake. He'll have outbursts where he gets really mad, but if anything, he plays better afterwards.
Yeah.
The only issue is that what he does might affect his teammates.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah.
But I know for him that works. Like he can ventilate and then be done with it in his head. So obviously, it's important for him to have teammates that can do somewhat similar, or can take a beating and then leave that be. That was the past. It's all good now.
It's actually funny, because with this I think you actually get the two situations as well, because there's people that externalize and the people that can't really properly do it, so they internalize like me. And then I think as well, when things are going badly in the game, you get people that the people that are more likely to be the internalizers are the ones that go quiet when stuff's going badly, and the people that are more the kind of ragey people, they get kind of they don't know
very loud,
so they get like a bit louder, or they themselves feel it more.
I actually prefer the second type. Because one of the worst things...
The externalizers?
Because one of the worst things I know is playing with people who go mute.
Yeah, that's really bad, really depressing.
Because that really stresses you out as a player. It's if one guy wants to call whoever told him a bunch of nasty words and then give out the information, I feel like that's better than a guy just going completely mute and not giving you anything at all to work with. So
we've kind of described it now, and I don't know what your approach is it, but I actually made like a video about this on my channel, how my approach is. But one of my big things was just like shifting the focus of where the emotion lies, because people. This is like a outcome orientedness. Is people attach emotion to the outcome. So then, and this is like a poker thing as well. Like when you're losing money, because. And it's actually, I learned this in poker basically, because the most devastating thing, because you're dealing with your bankroll, man. This is like serious stuff. You can't be throwing that away. So I was like figuring out this whole idea, and I saw like there's this huge podcast about like these poker players who like took a lot of teachings from from the Buddhism and so on to basically understand how to reframe their minds so that they could have consistent strategies. Because what happens actually is that if you're going to be a guy that's tilting, it will actually affect your decision making, but you won't know about it. Like you won't realize, but you'll be playing tighter. Like with poker, you're like, I'm afraid of losing money. Same thing as CS. I'm afraid of losing the situation because then I'm going to feel bad that I'm going to let my team down, and I'm going to put myself in a spot where maybe I miss a shot and then I'm going to feel bad, and then you play tighter, and so you're playing incorrectly. That's like a huge problem. So you can't have that happen.
But there you have the mindset of teams playing scared. Right?
Exactly, yeah.
And you see how detrimental that is to teams and players when they, basically, when they start playing scared. You're not as effective, you're not going to be as good as you should be. And there you have the problem with how you actually deal with adversity, really. I guess that's how it is, because some deal with it with rage and some go quiet. And like I said, I prefer the rage because I know they're still alive. That type of thing. I know they're still very much in the game. For me, what I've noticed with people going quiet when I'm playing in teams with them is that they lose focus, they drift. And obviously you can still lose focus when you're raging and you're more focused on trash talking the other guy than you are on what you're doing yourself. But in most cases, obviously this varies from person to person, but in most cases where I've played with people who are vocal about the mishaps that happen, then I feel like they do a pretty good job of just ventilating, being done with it, and playing on the next round as nothing happened.
It's there's like lots of stuff to talk about here. So I'm not going to go on for too long because
it's a massive topic.
It's a really big topic and it's very interesting. But there's like a small takeaway that you guys can Google, for example, from like let's say the Buddhism perspective. If you're looking to to mentally reframe some stuff, there's a concept called right action, which like the right action, and that's it's more or less. If you read about it, you'll find out it's more or less like a maturity thing as well. But read about right action if you want to get just dig into it just a little bit. If
you want to get good at CS, do it.
Yeah, become a Buddhist. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff that will help you. But yeah, that's the FPL show. We talked about lots of different topics. I don't know, like we started talking about players, we started talking about like Rattlesnake, and I don't know what the hell we covered after that. Like just going crazy.
We went all over the place.
Yeah,
but we covered a lot of basics, right?
So it's basically how it is when we're like at events, just talking just like that for ages. So well, hope you guys enjoyed our ramblings, our musings, talking about the old times, the new times, the players, and being a competitive player. I think that summarizes it well. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Of course, we won't be doing this next week unless the major's cancelled, because we're going to be at the major.
Hopefully you're not doing it next week.
Yeah, so the following week we should be resuming normal scheduling, so you can look out for that. But of course, the major is a week away. I can't believe it. It's kind of crazy to think the major's a week away.
You're gonna pop your major cherry.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why it's kind of crazy for me. I don't know. I'm very excited.
Fun, yeah.
Very excited. I don't know how to react. How should I be? But it's gonna be fun, and it means that of course there won't be any content from FACEIT TV during that week directly from me and James at the very least. Either way, you can follow the channel if you're not already doing so, and you can look forward to a lot more because we still have to close out the FACEIT League for North America and for Europe. Oceania is closed already, and of course we had quite a shock result there, which is really really cool. Animal Squad going through, going to be some new blood into Sweden, and they've now rebranded themselves. They've joined an org called Legacy,
which is apparently the biggest organization in Oceania, if I've understood it correctly. It's apparently a big deal. So that's really cool. And if they can get some good results for some good games in, that'd be super fun.
New blood is always welcome and always fantastic to see. So if you're looking to tune into those broadcasts, we can see us in a couple weeks. Otherwise, you'll see me at the major at Cluj. Yay! But thank you for watching the FPL show, and that's all from me and Halvor. Have a good evening.